Hour is brought to you by Ludagear, athletic support items created by grapplers for grapplers.
Yeah. Check it out.
In the interest of aviation security.
All right, everybody. So welcome. It is a beautiful day over here on Best Coast time is 11:36 on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon. So I made a promise to the good folks who did the Sogi Invitational. I said, hey, let's do a solid. Why don't you just shoot me whoever wins your tournament? And so it's going to come as a shock to me right now. I have them on Skype. I haven't looked at them yet. So I'm very excited to see who ended up winning. But I said whoever won is going to be on the show for today, and we've got a packed show. We've got Rich Byrne, we've got Werther Marciales, and we've also got Tony Birchak. But right now, why don't we go ahead and see who ended up winning at the Sogi Invitational. Sir, how are you doing? Oh, no.
Oh, what? Are you disappointed?
No, I mean, I promised them that I would bring on whoever won, but I didn't know that it would be you.
That's kind of makes me sad.
Well, it shouldn't make you sad because you were really mad at me, and you were the one that was telling me, you're like, hey, how have I never been on the Grappling Hour? I'm pretty sure I've been on. And I was like, actually, you haven't.
Yeah, I was a little shocked, to say the least. But here I am.
Yeah, of course. After you've been going on all these other shows, like a little floozy now, and making your appearances on all these other podcasts who barely know who you are, if we're being honest, Keith.
That's true. They really don't know who I am. It's okay, though.
Well, first off, congratulations to you, sir. I was very happy to see that you ended up winning the Sogi Invitational. How did this come together? Who reached out to you? How did this work? All that good stuff.
I reached out to the promoter. I think his name's Chris Shigoli or something like that. He's a 10th Planet Long Island guy. I think he's 10th Planet. He's from Long Island. But he was putting it together, or he put it together, and they already had like 16 guys. But then I texted him and I was like, hey, you guys need another guy? He's like, no, but if you want in, we'll make it a 20-man division. I was like, please do that. So then they made it a 20-man, and I bought my plane ticket, and then I just kind of figured it out from there. That was like 2 weeks ago, so it was a little short notice, but I felt like I was already training pretty hard.
Sure. Now, this is kind of crazy because I see many different people having different approaches to their ADCC prep. Some people are hitting the decelerate button, and yet here you are going out to a tournament like this where there is a little bit of risk involved. So what has been your idea? Because you've been pretty active. Is the idea to be active until now, or where are you? Are you stopping? Where are you at now?
No, the plan is to stay as active as possible until ADCC and sort of just kind of fine tune anything that I feel needs to be worked on, and kind of test it in competition. So my plan is to just compete locally or wherever until ADCC. But I know other guys do it different. Like I know I talked to Thor this week and I actually trained with him. And he was saying, no, he's just focusing on ADCC, and I totally understand that too, But yeah, I don't know. I stick to the wrestling mindset, whereas during a season we would wrestle, every week, multiple times a week usually until CIF and Masters and States and stuff. So I felt like I was very sharp when I competed a lot up until the more important tournaments, So that's sort of my thinking, my logic, I guess, going into this.
I think that makes sense. I didn't get the chance to actually talk with you about what it felt like to get the nod to go to ADCC. I know there was some false starts in terms of, hey, go vote for me. And then it was, well, that doesn't mean anything.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
And but you did win essentially prom king, I think, is what you got from that. But then, I mean, it was said right then and there that you would be one of the first alternates in, and then it went from first alternate to actually getting the call in. So what was going through your mind when you ended up getting the nod?
Yeah, I was really excited because I did end up losing the poll too, so I was like, oh, I lost this poll that didn't even matter.
Well, because, okay.
With the imaginary poll.
Let's be very clear, because here's the thing, is when you were in the middle of making the rounds to push people for the poll, you did this thing where you're like, come on, guys. If you just believe, I'm going to be in there and it's going to be fun. And then all of a sudden you went from all of that to being like, I don't care. Vote if you want. Voting's a fraud.
It didn't matter. The system.
The system's terrible.
Yeah, like basically, I just found out that it didn't matter, and so then I was like, all right, probably no point in making all my friends and family like go out of their way to vote for me when it doesn't actually.
Sure.
I don't know. I felt a little weird about it, but it worked out. I think it was actually, like you said, it was kind of good to like show the ADCC guys that at least a few people who my friends and family cared.
A few people.
See, so.
the splattering of friends that you have. They'll be like, I guess these guys like me. I mean, you did very well in the poll results. It was just a matter of you did basically, like, once I think it was Mo said, it was like, yeah, this doesn't matter. You were like,
I was like, what?
I don't care. I don't care anymore. You guys vote for whoever you want to.
It's so funny because he commented on my thing like 2 days later, or not 2 days, like a day later or so, and I was like, wait, what? So, what are you saying?
Of course.
Yeah, but it's funny. It's okay.
I mean, but again, the story went much better because now you're actually in the dance. And you were already, I mean, you're always active, so it wasn't an issue of it being like, oh, surprise, I better go compete now. So there was that going for you. How has that changed everything? Because like I said, you've still been super active. You've been doing about 1,000 tournaments and competitions. In the meantime, though, how has that changed in your mentality for preparation for this?
Yeah, I think just sort of staying in the competition mindset. I took my foot off the gas a little bit before I got the call, if you will. Mm-hmm. And just because, I wasn't certain, and I had other stuff like school and stuff to focus on, so I was like, you know what, like I should probably focus on, getting my other aspects of my life together before I kind of like commit to something that may or may not happen, But then I got the call relatively shortly after that, so I was like, okay, sweet. I'm gonna kind of get back on track, which is good because I was eating a lot. So,
I distinctly remember having a conversation with you and being like, hey kid, you should probably stay ready because we know how this goes, and you're just like, no, I can eat forever, yay! And it was like, I don't. Well, let's talk about this. Tell me about your Sogi Invitational experience, because I'm glad you were able to get on that card, and I'm glad they were able to accommodate it. They found 3 more people who I'm sure were very glad that you asked to be on it and opened up a door for that. So tell me how the day went for you, sir.
It was good. I had 4 matches. So how there's, when a 20-man bracket, there's 2 pigtails. So in theory, 2 guys could have possibly had 5 matches. But I got to buy the first round, so I only had 4. But I felt good. I felt like it took me a couple rounds, like my first 2 matches, to really warm up, and then I felt pretty good after that. I think, my semis, or my 3rd match, was when I first started to really feel good. I went against a guy named Nick Gulo. He's, I guess, one of John Calstein's training partners. He's very good. I think he had beat Mike Davila like right before that, so that's cool. And then And then in the finals, I went against Jordan Holy, who's one of my really good friends. But we've had like this is our fifth match against each other, and every time he like pushes me a little harder. So this one was challenging, but I knew it was going to be. And we went into overtime, and he rode me out. He got to attack first, so he rode me out for the first 2 minutes because I couldn't escape his body triangle. And then I got a chance to attack on the back, and then I sort of like face crushed him. Like,
Well, that's good because I had the opportunity to roll with him, and
oh really?
that's
right.
about a month ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's super good. But what was very similar is that having had the opportunity to train with both of you,
Oh yeah.
I could see some overlap. And I could see, and I was like, I'm not even trying to like steal your money, like your prize money. But you guys have a certain way that you both like to roll, which actually makes for very good competition viewing and videos and all that sort of stuff. And but I'm like, I just remember looking at the kid and being like, you compete tomorrow and you're trying to murder me, kid. Like
he has such a good competitive spirit that like it's really it just makes for great matches, and I stayed. My girlfriend and I actually went out and stayed with him like 2 weeks before. 2 weeks before I like got into the tournament. And so we were training together and like not really knowing we were gonna have to go against each other. And I was like, I was staying with him, and his fiance Alana, and we had a great time. But yeah, it was fun. So it was just funny how it worked out. But yeah,
he's also, and I don't know how many people have seen this just yet, but he was on the Shugio Invitational, which you are also a part of. So they essentially filmed this in secret, and in the first episode, you see that him and Rafael Domingos are in a car together before they're going to have a match together. And yet,
yeah.
I don't know if they knew that at the time or whatever was going on, but they didn't know.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
What?
Probably should. I'm not supposed to give stuff away. I'm sorry.
But it's already aired.
Did the episode already air?
Yeah, the first episode already aired.
I've seen it, but I thought it was just because they showed us. Maybe
it's okay because I wouldn't ask you a question for something that hasn't been seen.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't sure if you're trying to like
no.
Ariel Hawani.
Oh, Ariel, please. If I was ever gonna try and be Ariel Hawani, I'd have to be way less interesting. Anyway. The more important thing, he knows that. I love Ariel. He's fine, but I'm way better than him. Anyway, the more important thing for you, Keith, is when you are in that mode, though, and you get invited to this, that's a whole different experience. Did you get kind of an Ultimate Fighter feel from it? Like, what was the vibe when you got called for that sort of thing from Phil?
I didn't really, he had called me about a year ago. Talking about this tournament, he had described it to me, and it sounded exactly like the Ultimate Fighter, and that was like one of my favorite shows, pre-season 17.
Sure.
Like one of my it went a little downhill after that, but it was one of my favorite shows, kind of when I was younger, and so I kind of always wanted to be a part of something like that. Back when I had MMA aspirations, I thought it would be cool, but now as I grew up, one realized that doesn't sound like fun. But in the jiu-jitsu context, it sounds great, and so I was really looking forward to it. And he pitched it as he was so passionate about it, and he was, well, you talked to him, he had everything planned out perfectly, and everything was so professional, and it was really cool. He figured everything out, and he ran like one of the best tournaments I've ever been a part of, for sure.
I mean, just the fact that you guys all had to be shrouded to secrecy, except for you revealing everything that you don't know. The thing that impressed me the most about it was normally I find out about something via a flyer, and then I try to contact somebody and I say like, hey, tell me a little bit about your event. And normally the event hasn't happened yet. This is one of the few times where the event happened in secret and none of you idiots blabbed. And it was good because I looked at that and I said, that's the kind of stuff that keeps us surprised and excited to see grappling at its best, and to be, I'm sure, as one of the inaugural individuals brought in for that tournament, that probably had to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it was cool. It felt like he had got all the right guys to make it an exciting tournament, and he threw me in there too. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, hey, here's the good news, though. I still feel very, very happy that they did bring you in, and more importantly, on a personal note, you and I had chatted, and you were always like, oh man, I would love to have one of those sub-only, no time limit things. That'd be super fun. And I remember being like, yes, it would be fun. You'd be good to put in there. And then all of a sudden, I see that that's what it is, and I ask, what the format is and all those sorts of questions, and Phil's like, oh, it's sub-only, no time limit. I was like, good for Keith. He's getting those opportunities now, so good for you, kid.
Yeah, it was cool, yeah.
Well, let's talk about this, because people haven't seen the episodes yet. I've only seen episode 1, so that's as far as I know, and I don't want you to blab anymore, but I want people to go watch that series. Shugio Invitational, check it all out. Make sure to support them, because there's a real nice bones of it. You see Nathan Orchard as well. We've already mentioned Rafael Domingos. We've already mentioned Jordan Hawley. I think you guys will want to see what it looks like, just based on the little stuff I've seen.
Yeah, and I think so. The first episode was just Nathan, Sean, and Jordan, and Rafael. So I'm pretty sure the next episode is going to be me and other people. So.
And other people. Good job. I was like, oh Jesus, kid. I'm looking at you all nervous on the one side, being like, don't screw up, Keith. Whatever you do, don't say the wrong things. Okay. So let me ask this. You also on top of doing the invitational out there for the Sogi Invitational, you ended up doing a seminar as well. Tell us a little bit about that. How'd that go?
No, it was great. It was really cool. I was super kind of anxious because I don't get to teach very often because I don't really permanently live anywhere, so it's hard to give me a class, to teach, and it's just. I guess it's a little nerve-wracking going into a seminar all cold, so to speak, not as refined as other instructors, but it went really well. Everyone was super cool. It was the most amount of people I think I've ever taught in front of, so that was really cool. And yeah, everyone was just really receptive and really they seemed to like what I taught, so that was really fun. And Zach and Jay. JM wasn't there, but all the Bethlehem guys, Renee, they're all so cool. So it was a great vibe, and it was really fun.
That's awesome, dude.
That's awesome.
There was a weird photo, and I know that you had mentioned you and Thor got the chance to train with each other, and I also know that there was Jared Dopp in the mix as a round.
Yeah, Jared. Yeah.
But there was a weird photo of you and Thor that I feel inclined to ask about.
Yeah. So we had taken our serious photos, and then you take the one. It's customary for every high-level training session. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Atos does it also.
Yes, Atos is super big on it. I just asked because
all right, silly one, guys.
I just yes, and they definitely get as silly as you guys did, because I just know that when I'm kind of perusing through and I do my research, there's always a moment where I go, well, let's see what the kid's up to, and let's see. And I don't know that people can make this out here. Again, it's a little weird, but this is you and Thor?
Yeah, I that might be a woman. I don't know.
No, pretty sure it's you guys. And, I worry about you kids sometimes.
It was fun. Training with Thor is it's hard, first off, but it just makes you realize, man, this guy can do things that not a whole lot of people can do. So it was good. It was exciting. I'm really excited to see him at ADCC too. I think that it's really cool that we're bringing so many good 10th Planet guys in, because I feel like this is the best the team has ever been. We're only going to get better, obviously, but as of right now, this is the best we've ever had. We're bringing three really good people and me, and so I feel like it'll be really fun.
Does it also feel pretty good that, this is you and Thor's first experience at ADCC, that, you guys obviously have your team camps, but you're part of a larger team all around. So you guys, before you go to the big dance, you got the opportunity to train with each other, especially on your first go round. Is there something special in that, having somebody that you kind of go, hey, you're the new guy here too, and this is crazy, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of cool because Thor was like one of those. He just one of those guys who was just kind of grinding away and like doing tournaments and doing well, but not really getting recognized as much. And then it was really cool of the ADCC guys to recognize him, and I guess me too. And it just feels like this could be a fun like sort of coming out type thing for both of us. And it's just it's cool because like I said, there's aside from Geo and I guess Elvira, this will be your second one too, but there's not too many just like first timer 10th planet guys to talk with about it. So it's cool. It's really fun. It's cool.
And I have to be honest here, dude, because one of the things that I think is pretty dope about this experience is you're also in it with Geo, and you're in the same division as Geo. So obviously, that's awkward in some way.
Yeah.
But here's why it's nice though, because somebody posted when they do the little 16-man showing everybody who's going to be in it, and essentially Geo had a death face on every person. And he had a death face on every person except for you, who he put a giant smiley face over, which, that's cute.
I know, I messaged him about that.
Move to our family boarding, please, after first class. Passengers needing extra
Jesus Christ, could they be louder over there? I'm going to put you on mute for a second. The thing that I find very intriguing, though, is he was just on an episode with me about 2 weeks ago as well, and he had nothing but great things to say about you, and he was so stoked for the beginning of your journey as well. I don't know if you saw it, but if you didn't, it's toward the end of the interview. He said very nice things, despite my best efforts. You didn't make it that far? Boo.
Sorry.
Then you know what? I take it back. He never said anything about you.
Yeah, I guess not.
I also have umbrage to take with you on this, which is, I think about a week ago on the last episode, you were taking some sort of, issue with the opening music. That is the wait music.
So long, and I just wanted the show to start.
Do you understand that sometimes the people who appear on this show have things that make them harder to put on at the minute they're on? For example, when they show up at an airport and they're not on time. So sometimes you put on the hold music that says, hey, I gotta get this idiot ready to be on camera before they come on.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, for anyone wondering, I am at the airport right now.
Which I appreciate your time, but I just want to let you know that what am I supposed to do when somebody goes, hey man, I'm ready to go, and then they like give you a thing that's like, oh, hold on, and I'm like sitting there going, okay. So at the very least, you have a whole music that makes you feel better, but the poor individual who made that music for me, I'm sure feels very bad, and I think that's rude, and I think that's not who you are.
It's not the music, it's the fact that I have to wait for the show to start.
No, I know what it is. I know it's you being like, oh, like a little kid and being like, but I want it now, and I'm like, that's not how this works, kid.
I know how it feels.
But that's what's so funny is like I saw you do that, and I go, the dummies are talking right now.
All right.
And then of all people, I see Jordan Peitzman, who, by the way, we'll find out this very quickly when he makes his own show, which you're going to cheat on me with and go on that show.
Sorry.
It's fine. I like Jordan. I have no issue with you going on his show, except for all of the issues.
He has a great name, by the way. Do you know the name for his podcast?
Yeah, it's all right.
Flower, but like hour.
Yeah, everybody suddenly started doing an hour show after I put one up, so that's okay.
Yeah, his is better.
His is clever? Oh, okay. Really excited about it. I know when I tune in, I'm like, ooh, the name. Anyway, no, I'm very excited for Jordan. Jordan's a very nice human being, so I'm very happy to see him give some shine to some folks who deserve it, and you. So it's going to be a great amount of time. Keith, tell us, man, I mean, so this means, am I getting you to say officially that you get to take some time off, that you won't be competing until ADCC now? Is that what's happening? You're not just going to make up a tournament and go do one?
There's a Grappling Industries next week.
Families with small children.
What the fuck? Why? Like, you don't have to do that, dude.
Of course I don't have to. No one has to compete. But I want to keep the, keep the skills as sharp as possible.
Yeah. Jay Regal Burrito says, "I heart Keith. Congrats, brother."
Aw, Jay's the best.
I mean, me.
Hey, I heart you too.
No, you don't. So it goes me, then Jay, then
the order
Jordan.
can be
The order could be debated. Anyway, I would like to go ahead and tell you guys, I'm very excited for our good friend Keith. I'm just, man, I could not be happier that you got the call. I think you really, really deserve it. I think that you are somebody who puts in a lot of work and effort into what you do. But I have to ask the question. You know what we did for the last ADCC, right?
I do. Oh, I know. I was actually looking forward to doing that again.
But you can't now that you're in it.
Well, maybe I could.
Nope, that's a rule. I cannot have you do it, because how do I know that all of a sudden you're not going to throw something or like try and mangle things around just so you can say that sort of thing so you could get a free gear or something that you wouldn't even know what to do with anyway.
Okay.
But
that was fun last time.
I just want to make sure are you going to be comfortable with somebody having you on their ticket?
Yeah, I hope that like one of my friends gets it or something, and that way I can like try to take them to victory and give them a free key or whatever.
whatever
Last
great
time-
merch.
I forget who I got last time, but they did not do. I think I got like Dylan Dennis, and they did not do well.
Oh, God.
And I lost first round. I was so bummed, but it was okay. I still got to I got to make the brackets, or I got to draw them.
You did a very good job the last time, and I was very happy to see that, I don't know if you remember this, but I definitely told you on our show, I would not be surprised if we would see you on an ADCC 2 years ago, and I was right.
I vaguely remember that, but I probably just because I didn't believe you.
Well, because of course you were just like, oh, I'm just a little guy and I don't know what I'm doing. But you made a commitment around that time that I know for sure to make an effort to get on ADCC, and you accomplished that. So before you even get to the part where you need to smash and grab and go Hulk on these folks in a few weeks, I hope that you take a moment to really understand what a great accomplishment that is. So I'm very happy for you, man. I look forward to seeing you. I'm going to let you get on out of here because it sounds like they're trying to take you to Hogwarts. And I'm very excited that you were able to make time for us today, dude.
Thank you for having me.
All right, man. I will see you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith Krikorian. All right, everybody. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to bring Rich Byrne on in just a second. But in the meantime, I hope that you guys enjoy these little commercial breaks while we go ahead and get our friend Rich Byrne from Kasai. We'll see you in just a second. I just have this theory. Are as competitive in video games as they are when they compete on the big stage.
This is a formal challenge to any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt out there. See me at the Cade, and you will get this work. You don't want this smoke, because
Okay.
I'm a video game great. I'm just okay. I'm just really good at Street Fighter, I guess. I mean, it'd be fun. Let's do it. And I would call somebody out for sure.
Okay. You don't have anybody you'd call out right now?
Keenan Cornelius.
You think you'd do it?
I think I beat Keenan Cornelius in any fighting game.
Whoa. Any fighting game?
Keenan Cornelius, challenge me Street Fighter 5. Boom.
Okay.
Street Fighter 5.
Wow.
Keenan Cornelius versus me, Street Fighter 5. Let's do it.
Okay. Let me. Oh, hey, man, real quick. I'm not sure if you might want to check behind you. Can you see right behind you? Yeah, I think you just missed. It's BJJ steroids. They were just trying to see if they were. I have to ask this.
That's funny.
You're welcome. Hey everybody, thank you so much for waiting. I hope that you guys are enjoying your day. We continue on with a great episode of individuals who are going to be doing big things on all things grappling. We just talked with Keith Krikorian. If you guys missed that, you can catch that on our YouTube page. That's on Grappling Hour right now. But we are live and about to go with Rich Byrne. But in the future, just know we've got Tony Birchak coming up afterwards, and then Werther Marciales, who won the Brothers Invitational as well after this interview. But for right now, let's talk with one of the men, I should say, who has been behind the push to make grappling more professional. And here's what I truly love about Kasai. I have not heard one bad word from any of the athletes involved, because all of them say they get treated like rock stars. They get the opportunity to shine on a big stage. And yes, I've had the opportunity to talk with Rich, and I know his love of grappling is pure when he came on Verbal Tap previously. So I'm so excited that we get to bring him on the Grappling Hour for the very first time. Rich, how are you doing today, sir?
Raph, I'm great. Awesome. Couldn't be better. This is a welcome break. I've been doing financial stuff all day in my day job. This is the stuff I actually love to talk about.
Do you have to like go over to everybody and be like, hey, listen, this is fun and all, but I really want to go talk grappling, so I'm done talking finances and investments?
No, all I said is I have a very important meeting in my office. Don't bother me.
Well, okay, that works. Hey, you know what? When you get to be as important as you are, that's great. I don't necessarily get to do that. I have the opposite problems. They'll usually tell me, they're like, are you going away for the grappling stuff? And I was like, no, not at all. And I sneak away to it. Rich, it's so great to get to see you personally. When you came on Verbal Tap, you had such a great appearance. You stayed after to talk with my co-host, Kevin, and I, and it was a great conversation. And the thing is that I've been wanting to get an opportunity to talk with you again because so much has happened since that episode. So much has happened with you guys. You guys have put out 3 more stellar, I believe, promotions, and then not just that, but you've also been doing these qualifiers for people who are looking to get that next step to going in. So tell me a little bit about what has been the biggest change since the last time I've talked with you.
Since the last time you talked to me, I think you're right. We've put on 3 events. We did a Super Series, Kasai Pro 5, maybe 4 as well. I'm not sure, but several events. We now have a champion with a belt in every weight class now, and 5 weight classes. We're going to have 2 more, and then we'll be done with the men at least. So we've gotten that accomplished. More importantly, Raph, I think the biggest thing that we did is we've landed on foreign soil with Kasai. I mean, it really started as a New York promotion. I think we had ambitions to go beyond New York. We wanted to see how we were received. Every show we did in New York was a sellout. I mean, we kept going to bigger venues and they kept selling out. And we kept, every time, like I travel a lot for business. And every time I travel, if I can, I try to find a dojo and train. And I'm not particular. I mean, I literally just go wherever city I'm in. Of course I'll go to whatever gym that, I think might be the best. But, when I get there, people are so solicitous and so nice. And like, when are you coming to our city? When are you coming? Not just our city. I mean, I've told the story before. I was in Middle East. I was in Bahrain and in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh recently. Mm-hmm. I walked in there as if these guys had known me for 100 years. I'd never met any of them before, but they watch Kasai. They love it. They want to know when we're coming there. I said, well, you know what? Maybe we should hit a few more U.S. cities before we plan our pilgrimage to Mecca. But we'll, so I think the biggest thing that's happened is just our brand has sort of gone global. And, it used to be hard to do in the old days. I'm kind of old. I've watched business models evolve over time. It's hard to develop a cross country and then ultimately a global brand. But in the this day and age, I sound like one of those old fogies, but this day and age with those damn computers, everybody, there's instant connectivity, and thankfully we've been received, all over the place really well.
I have to ask this because I'm so curious, and I know I have it on a smaller scale, but I do wonder this on your scale, which is, do you get people auditioning essentially when they're rolling with you? Do you get these people who are like, oh, this guy's in charge of Kasai, so I'm gonna go ham right now? Because even at my level, even when people recognize me as somebody who puts on tournaments or somebody who is on air with people like you or athletes, I get people trying to, say like, hey, I'm good enough to be on a show. Are you getting some of that?
Yeah, that's really a good question. I think I get some of everything, and you tell me if your experience is similar. Being older, I think I get a little bit of a pass from some people, don't want to hurt the old guy.
Wait. How do I get that? Because I 100% do not get that.
I think you need another 15, 20 years to catch up. But the wearing the black belt is a mark, and then obviously having Kasai is a bit of a mark in the other direction. So usually with the stars, the real guys, I feel like they almost sort of take it easy on me because they want me to have a good experience. Whereas the younger up and coming guys, they really want to win.
Oh yeah.
And that's tough. You got to pick your partners carefully, but in a room of people you never saw before, I mean, how do you do that? I don't know.
It's tough because I'm at that age where I should still be rolling with everybody, so I don't really have an out and being like, oh, my arthritis, or so I've still got that opportunity where I'm in a room and I'm like, oh, these murderers row are all coming after me. And just to be very clear, we have one of those individuals in the comment section right now, Jordan Hawley, is saying he's like, put me on Kasai, I want that smoke. And I gotta be really, really honest with you. He is one of those individuals. I'll put him on blast right now. He came out for Subversive, and it was a day before he's competing. And I make this big announcement to everybody. I was like, don't hurt the merchandise. Like, he has to be in one of the main events. And this guy just came out and murked me like I took out one of his family members. And I was just like, this is just a fraction of what you do to people when you're competing. Like, I don't got anything for this. So I can vouch for him and tell you that he and Keith Krikorian are two of those individuals who bring that smoke. So
well, I would love to have him.
Well, I would love to put on. That is my passing on a good word for him.
Okay, good.
But he's aside from those 7 minutes of hell, he is a genuine human being, a very, very nice individual. But I do like that. I like the fact that you get those people, because I've had Lovato when I've rolled with him, and he pulled his punches, and I was like, I didn't get out of that.
I choose to believe I did.
That's probably the better choice.
So, I convinced myself I'm better than some of these guys until, I get a cold water in my face.
Absolutely.
But for some of the, I know people. I was just having this conversation earlier today with one of my training partners, and he was saying when he goes into some gyms and he sees the guys over, he picks some arbitrary weight, 210 pounds, and the guy looks at him and says, how about this round? He'll say no. Mm-hmm. And I said, I don't know how to do that. I can't say no. If somebody looks at me, they want to train, unless I just have been warned. It's sort of like they used to, this is totally politically incorrect, but they used to say, when you're walking down, or when you're in a topless club or something, mm-hmm. and you wanna not get picked, you just say, I have no money. Yeah. It's the easiest thing in the world. You can say that they'll run away from you because in that case, you always think it's because you're good looking, but when you tell me you have no money, your looks apparently disappear. Same kind of thing, maybe I'm hurt or something like that. I don't know. But my philosophy is I roll with anybody, and sometimes I regret it.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes they're trying to prove a point. Sometimes they just do that. Over the years, you get to be better at picking your partners, I guess.
You're also a black belt, so you have a little bit more, when people see that, they're like, he owns it and he's a black belt. All right, now I'm going to really put this good audition in there. I had one person flat out tell me, they're like, yeah, I'm auditioning. And I was like, noted, thank you. But I don't want to spend time just talking about people trying to murder us. I want to talk about this event that you've got coming up, because I have questions about the other events that you guys have put together. I just love what you guys do. And I'm a fan, and I really think it's important that people know, the people behind the scenes are just as enthusiastic, if not more, about the events. So tell me a little bit about the event that's coming up this weekend, sir.
So, Atlantic City, New Jersey, at the Showboat Hotel, we have Kasai Pro 6. It is actually our 8th event. Kasai Pro 6, our 8th event. How did you do that? Well, we also have Kasai Super Series. The difference between Kasai Pro and Kasai Super Series is Kasai Pro holds our tournaments. That's when we crown or give a belt out to the champion of that weight class. So that's what we're doing in Atlantic City. It's a 135-pound tournament, which is a bantamweight. And we have 8 guys that are killers. I mean, I really feel great about this tournament. I feel like we got blessed. Usually you start getting a lot of injuries. We had one guy had to pull Ethan Krellston. He blew out his knee. Hopefully he'll be ready for ADCC. I don't know. Yeah. But we replaced him with Junie Ocasio. Junie is a rock star. Junie fought a dead heat match against Richard Alarcon at our finals of our pro qualifier when we were in Orlando. It was almost like a pick'em who won, it was sort of ref's decision.
Sure.
And so I was so glad to settle that we didn't literally have to just go with that with that decision, and we can get them both in the tournament. But it's a shame to lose Ethan. But we have 8 guys, both from the IBJJ points world, like Joao Miao, as well as some notable sub-only guys like Gio Martinez. We have John Calistine, Ashley Williams, and 2 of my idols in the sport from the older days. Not so old, but Rafael Freitas, Barata, and Imanari, which we're really excited about.
Yeah, I was like, when you look at these things, you obviously give a lot of looks to what's the up and coming and what's the standard, the establishment. But I definitely looked at something like that and I go, man, you guys got Imanari and you got Freitas, and I was like, that's so dope that this is such an eclectic mix that you put together for that tournament. Like, I know that losing Ethan has to be a bummer, and we wish him well, and as you mentioned, we really hope he's good for ADCC. But, like, how stoked are you when you see the lineups? Like, when you see the photos, does it hit you then? When does it hit you that you have the card that you have?
Well, I never try to get too close to it because, sometimes guys have to pull, they get hurt. But, yeah, we're excited about this. We did a 145 tournament, so... but there is a very specific group of people that can make 135 that can't make 145, and
right.
we got a lot of them here, and super excited about it. And you're right. I mean, we really try to mix the different worlds of jiu-jitsu, and we, hopefully people will watch, like Kasai, for a simple reason that it's exciting and it's fun and it's just engaging, and we just see some incredible matches. But some of the reasons behind that are just how we match make, that we do bring people from sub-only world, because I think we create a rule set that could make both, more points guys, submission guys, wrestling guys, other guys, all comfortable within our rule set and on somewhat of a level playing field. The matches are only 6 minutes, so they're fast and, there's exciting. We don't have these artificial tiebreakers, so try to bring a lot of elements together, but it all, like you said, it all starts with who's in your tournament.
Yeah.
Are these the right guys, and are these... And one of the cool things about it is, Hollis and I are working on the brackets now, and we're having so much fun. My favorite part about this job is picking the brackets, because you want to see your dream matches. There's so many matches in there, and you want to keep it fair and all that stuff. But literally, we would just keep doing the hypothetical matchups between guys, and every one of them's a pick 'em. I almost can't tell you who's going to win, and there's going to be some crazy upsets. Plus, you get rewarded for submissions. I don't know if you saw, but we just for fun, we offered an extra $1,000 prize.
I did see that
for anybody that finished their opponent, including the undercard, with a Imanari roll to a finish, maybe a saddle knee bar or something, or a Barata Plata. Because we have the guys that invented those moves.
That's great branding, because I definitely took a moment where, I worked with a lot of friends who are in game shows. So to me, when I see a stipulation like that, I'm always like, oh my God, I would watch that game show. Like, we always joke on the podcast, we always come up with different ways, and it just is, when you work in TV, you can't stop thinking like that. So it's one of those things where I pitched it to one of my friends who knows nothing about grappling. I go, what would you do if I told you we were going to do it like this? And he's like, I'm interested. I have no idea about this sport. And I go, exactly, because you get invested in that. And putting that extra incentive in there, I think, is good, because the grapplers are always like, we don't have money. So it's like, well, if you do this, you get more money, kids.
That was also fun.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and I think it's also a show of respect for the two guys in the tournament that are just ridiculous. It would be so cool if one of them got that.
Well, I was about to say, they're also looking at it like, finally, someone's going to pay me for what I do. Like, that's my move. So I'm pretty sure they're looking at that and going like, is it just once? Like, can I get it multiple times? Because if that's the case, that's all I'm going for.
Yeah, every time.
So I'm so stoked about that. And I just saw this information as we were live on the air, but it looks like we had a change of opponent for one Tom DeBlas, correct?
No.
There was not a change. I was told it was a last-minute replacement, so maybe I read that wrong.
I hope not. I've been in actual work meetings all day, so we'll come back to you if there was something that I've been out of pocket, but I don't believe so.
Fair enough. Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't mean to be the person to break the news, but I figure if I have the person who's here, that I should always ask about that sort of information. So I hope I'm not raising any blood pressure on your side. But here's the good news. Tom DeBlas I don't think he really cares. I think he's a game competitor enough to be in that situation.
Tom is a stud, and he keeps telling us how great shape he's feeling, how stoked he is, and how he's going to put on a show for his local boys. He's in his hometown here in Atlantic City. I'm not sure quite how far it is from his house, but obviously in South Jersey, he is the man.
Let me double back on this, because there was something I was curious about. Are you primarily, are you involved in the matchmaking? Like, where do you step in there? Or do you, collaborate with other people? Because I hear different things that people do for different organizations. I don't know, sometimes it's like a WhatsApp chain or a message chain. And then sometimes it's just one or two people behind the scenes. But who does the matchmaking for you guys?
Well, Hollis Gracie is our president. Mm-hmm. I couldn't think of a better person to do that job than Hollis Gracie from two perspectives. One is judgment on who to match and all that, but the other is on the fact that he has relationships. He knows all the fighters, literally. I mean, it just never ceases to amaze me, how connected he is because a lot of these guys, especially when we were starting, it wasn't the easiest sell in the world to come to this new promotion and we want you to fight.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a sell. Thankfully, it's gone the other way. Now everybody's calling us, so it's getting a lot easier. But I think the way we think about it is Hollis and I do it together. Some of our other guys on our staff, our chief marketing officer, who Greg Melita, he weighs in. I mean, you ask 100 people, you get 100 different opinions. But I like hearing all the opinions and see what people think. But we all have our favorites, and we kind of lobby for the guys in the matches that we think that are best. But Hollis is the man. But we all play an active role.
Because I'm curious, and I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this. I could be completely off base. But when you look at numbers and spreadsheets and figures all day, but you really want to go play jiu-jitsu, I can't help but think that you're there going I've got a couple ideas, guys. I was on lunch break, and I just might put this match together, and I don't know. What do you guys think? I just wonder if that tendency shines through a little bit more and more.
Absolutely. I think of it as a collaborative effort. I think we're all sufficiently knowledgeable about who the guys are and what the best matches are, and it's our favorite thing to talk about. We came up with 100 matches for the 4 super fights we're putting on in this show. We had 100 matches in our head. So, you have to cull them down. And of course, some guys aren't available, you got to factor that into. But for the most part, we cull down 100 matches into the 4 we're picking in the main card for this tournament. That's why we love the Super Series so much, because we usually have, anywhere from 10 to 13 fights on the main, 14 fights on the main card. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot more time. We have a bigger canvas for our artistic expression. And you know what? The undercard too, because everybody thinks of an undercard as when you go to a city, it's just who's local, who are some of our, people we respect, who are some of the local professors, who they want to put up. But at this point, we kind of know most of the people. So, it's almost a little bit of a matchmaking at the undercard too. Now, maybe not for like some young blue belts and purple belts, but if you watch our shows, a lot of our undercard is black belts, women, men. And these are main card fights in almost any other setting.
Mm-hmm.
But, for us, our main card is just rock stars. So, these guys are in the undercard. But getting the exposure there, I mean, our undercard gets hopefully a lot of traffic through it as well.
Of course. And again, as you mentioned, you've been building this momentum steadily. And the fact that you're able to start taking it on the road now is super impressive. I remember when you guys were just hinting as where you were going, I think, on the last time you came on to talk with us. And I was just I was hearing you say it, and I go, okay, noted. You're going to go to Texas. Okay, cool. Florida seems in play, and all these sorts of things. So being in Atlantic City, I know, is going to be a huge thing. For me, I just want to note something here, which is, it is impressive. It's, how when you get to those last weeks of summer, and then you go back to school, like when you were a kid, I feel like we're getting that, but just with ADCC. So you guys are officially one of the last big events, pulling in big names before everybody goes into a little cocoon of training just for ADCC. Was that by design? Did you guys plan it where you go, hey, if we're about a month out, we're still going to be safe? Or did that not even factor into your plans?
No. We're putting on, give or take 6 to 7 shows a year. And by definition, unless you want to have it on the same day as ADCC, we're going to have a show relatively close before it, and then one relatively soon after it. If you notice, in our last 2 shows, we had, couldn't avoid it, even if we weren't really trying, but we had a lot of ADCC invite fighters on our cards. On this card alone, I'd have to go through it. I can't do it by memory, but Josh Hinger, Mateus Denise, Kynan, Yuri, Murillo, Joao's not, Gio Martinez, Richard Alarcon. That's a lot of guys on ADCC. And we had Ethan until unfortunately he pulled. On our last card, we had probably a similar amount. So, we have the best of the best here. Also, I would point out, look, I have a little ADCC envy, I'll be honest. That is sort of the mecca for that and the gi worlds, of course. But if you think about it, we do the ADCCs. We just do them on separate days, on separate months. So we're doing the 135. I guess that's somewhere in the 66 vicinity for ADCC. But we did 45, 55, and 35. So between our 3 tournaments, we've had virtually, but we just do them on separate times. ADCC is sort of all at the same time.
Right.
But, hopefully, our goal, you didn't ask, but hopefully, our goal is that the Kasai belt in one of those weight classes counts and is just as prestigious as winning ADCC or the Worlds. We've got a little ways to go, but, certainly what you have to do to win it is no small feat. You got to beat 7 other really talented guys in a round robin format, which means you're kind of fighting everybody.
Yeah. Well, the other, I guess, observation I have is just the fact that you have these 2 people who are replacing. So you had Red and you had Junie making it into the 8-man, right? So you had Red who qualified for it, right?
Yeah.
And you had Junie who was just right there as well. And so one of the things is, you see these guys, you see Junie winning a whole bunch, you see Red winning combat jiu-jitsu on his side, and he qualified from there as well. So it's like, this qualifying process isn't always just a good stepping stone, but it's a legitimate contender threat, because now he's an individual that's also going to ADCC as well. So there's a nice pattern that you guys seem to be in on the mix of having your ear to the ground on. Do you plan to do more of those qualifiers? Because I just felt like that was something that was in the works when we talked last, but now actually was implemented. And how have those been going for you guys?
That's a good question. So we've actually done a qualifier for all 6 of our tournaments. The reason it's not as sort of doesn't encompass as many people is because we've held them in one day, one place, and it's been generally in the New York area until this one. We did 4 separate qualifiers this time, in 4 different cities. I forgot, California, or
Like
we did
you had
Studio
one in,
540. We did it at
like,
in
Texas and
Orlando,
yeah.
Austin, and in Brooklyn. And the winners, and it worked out well because the winners of each of those qualifiers, 4 guys, we brought them to Orlando because we had an Orlando event not too far, in between the August show. I think it was in July, or in June. So we let them duke it out there. So the 4, they fought on the undercard, and then the 2 winners, Red and Junie, fought it on the finals. So love to do it that way again. It's a lot of logistics.
Yeah.
Hollis got in a plane and flew to all 4 of those spots. It's a lot of work, and I commend them for doing it. We'll split the load a little bit, and maybe in the future.
Well, don't put that out on air. The minute you put that out on air, now he's going to go to this tape and be like, "I heard what you told Raph."
Yeah.
Now you got to go fly out to Florida.
People want to, when he holds your hand up, you accomplished something. So that was super exciting. So I think it'll be more of a global talent search than some of the West Coast guys were always, complaining, I can't make it to New York.
Sure.
A lot of people did. A lot of people bought bus fare and plane fare and car fare and got to New York for these qualifiers because they knew it's their chance for stardom. I mean, think about it. We've had some real players in our the pro qualifier seat. Mateus Ludus in our 170-pound tournament came in 3rd place. I mean, that's pretty good to go into the pro qualifier, because that was your way to get a seat in the tournament, and then end up coming in 3rd place. Junie was in our first ever show. Junie won the pro qualifier. It was in New York. He subbed, I think, 4 of his 5 matches in the pro qualifier. I mean, he's killed everybody. It was awesome. And then he came to the event against, still to this day, one of our most stacked cards, Kasai Pro 1. It was back in Brooklyn back then. We had Gary Tonin and Canuto and AJ, and we had Gianni and Munch. I mean, that's a pretty good crowd.
Yeah.
And Junie, he didn't win any, didn't place, but he came play. He ended up drawing all of his matches. And Celcinho, who tried in vain to pass his guard relentlessly, and was that it hit us at that moment that these guys there's so many talented guys, but some of them just don't get the chance, just don't get the stage.
Yeah.
Canuto wasn't a pro qualifier. We picked him, but we picked him as our 8th spot because Hollis scouted him and said, this guy Canuto is great. We got to have him on our show. And I said, come on, we want some real big names. And who would have guessed? He ended up winning that. He ended up winning our 170 belt, and he is officially a jiu-jitsu rock star now.
I'll tell you this much, my friend. I definitely have referred to him as Mr. Kasai because I feel like he's been one of your best franchise players. Like, he's somebody who has come alive under your guys' stage. And, it was funny, when I interviewed him last, I want to say in July or so, I had this great laugh with him because I went to go train out in Vegas, and he was just prepping for your tournament. And he was asking for people to do no-gi rounds. And he was like, hey, man, do you mind going no-gi? And I was like, I don't. Sure. But, like, what am I going to do with you? You know what I mean? And he couldn't have been...
backflip over your head?
He was literally trying everything in the world. Like, I looked like the world's biggest idiot. But the thing is, he didn't submit me. And he was so pissed about that. And it just made him go more and more and more. And I'm, like, looking at the clock being like, this is death. Like, I feel the worst I think I've felt in a long time. So when I brought him on the show and I was like, you're Mr. Kasai, he laughs. And then he just goes, yeah, I remember training with you. And I was like, wait, that was just 8 months ago, dude. How would you remember that? He's like, I remember I couldn't submit you. And I was like, see, I don't, that's how we're different people. I don't think like that. And he's like, oh, no. He's like, I'm going to wreck you the next time we roll. And I was like, well, I'm not coming to Vegas anymore. So anyway, but he is a very nice individual. And I know that he has been one of those people to thrive under your guys' shows. So I feel like there is an element of you guys having that ability to create stars on your own. It's just, obviously, you want to have that good mix of who you know, who you should know, and who you should know right now. So
Yes.
it's definitely a very good thing to go on. So what can we expect from this weekend? Because you guys, I know Hinger's on this as well. So you guys aren't short on talent that have come from other places as well. And again, other ADCC individuals. So what can we expect from this weekend?
So we talked about the tournament. Let's talk about the super fights for
Yes,
a second.
please.
So you mentioned Hinger.
Yes.
Hinger is fighting our champion at 185 pounds, Mateus Denise, who tore through the tournament when he won that belt. Mateus Denise is awesome.
Yep.
So at the Nogi Worlds, I don't know if you remembered or watched it, but Hinger, I think it was quarterfinals, I don't remember when, but Hinger fought Denise, and it was, I remember while I was watching it, it was one of those matches that you can't, you just a minute in, you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to blink.
Right.
And it was just a crazy match. And Hollis and I were watching it together live, just standing right there. And we said, we got to have a redo of this one. And it wasn't able, and it worked out well because we always like for our champions to get, book the super fights on our card. We call them title defenses, but we don't, the belt's not at stake, but we like to get our champions, to promote them. It's a big deal to be one of our champions, and it's going to get you against top-notch talent in future shows. So a priority was a match for Denise, and when Hinger said yes, we were really excited about that. So that's going to be a great fight. Pull it out of the library, anybody's watching that, if you haven't seen it. Hinger took Mateus's back early on. It was up, I forgot, I'm going to get this wrong, but 7-0 or some crazy, and Denise spent the last 3 minutes just earning back 2 points at a time until they almost made it. They just ran out of time. But it was super exciting. Never a dull second. We also have Kainan Duarte, who right now, I don't want to overstate this, but I think he's top 2 or 3 best guys in the sport right now. He's on a tear, and he's super young, and he's only going to get better. He's fighting Yuri Samoys, who has one of the best resumes in jiu-jitsu of currently relevant guys. And Yuri, is I keep saying the word rock star, but I don't know how better to describe it. Yuri's a rock star, and that's going to be a great event. Those guys are obviously both competing in ADCC. Whenever Kainan is on our stage, we're super excited. Same with Yuri, so that ought to be a great. So those 2 matches, I'm just crazy excited about. We talked about DeBlas and Andrew Teve. The other match is sort of a bonus match because we usually put 3 super fights on the card. We're always mindful of how much time this stuff takes. We don't want to keep people out too far past their bedtime. But after we had established the card, Murillo Santana, approached us. I know Murillo quite well. I train at Unity, on a fair amount. But as one of the places I train, and Murillo said, "Hey, any chance you put me on the card?" And I said, any chance maybe in the future you could ask me that question before the poster goes out, and we've filled every single spot. But so we made an exception. We added a 4th super fight, and he's against this guy Webb, who's an MMA fighter and a super tough guy and great jiu-jitsu guy. So I actually think that's going to be a great match, and I always love watching Murillo. One of the best, most technical guys in the world.
I have to say, yeah, because I saw Murillo, and I kind of felt like it was a little bit of a late edition, or I just saw it late, and when I looked down, I was like, yeah, I'll watch that. I just look down and I go, I just sometimes will put myself in the mindset of a promoter and go, yeah, if Murillo came up to me and said, put me on there, I'd just find a way,
That's exactly what happened. Cannot ever say no to that.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for Murillo, both as a teacher, of course, but just, again, one of the most technically strongest, just solid grapplers, I think, Jiu-Jitsu Hall of Fame right there.
Okay.
So that's a lot of guys. And we talked about the guys in the tournament, but these tournaments are super exciting because I love it's a round robin. We put 4 and 4. So each of the guys in the A group and B group fight each other. So everybody gets to fight each other. It doesn't matter if you won or lost your first match. We've had guys that got just we've had guys that have lost their first matches that have come on to make the finals or the bronze medal match. Jason Rao lost to Canuto. I forgot the score, but it was a big. Canuto put up some big numbers. He did his one of his flips and all that stuff. And then Rao came back and methodically beat all the guys he fought after that. And if he had submitted in his last fight, he would have made the finals. And I remember it because my daughter was sitting there, doesn't know a lot about jiu-jitsu. And she said, "Oh, poor guy, he's out." I said, "No, he's not. Jason Rao is an incredibly talented guy. He could tap anybody at any moment, and I got lucky. It turned out to be right. But that's what we love about the format, especially because you get 3 points for a submission, 2 points for a win. So that submission, for those submission guys, it is, it's a real bounty. And that's why we're fortunate enough to get guys like Calistine and Gio, in the mix, competing against, points guys. It's a nice level playing field. But love seeing that develop and the strategy that comes out of it. A round robin is a very strategic format.
It is. It's huge. And I got to say, as a compliment to you guys as well, some friends created, essentially, they recorded a tournament in secret. So they got like Nathan Orchard, Keith Krikorian, Jordan Hawley, these really good names. And they did a round robin tournament because they said, you know what? We don't want people to just fly out here and just lose their first match and be like, well, that was fun. Thanks, guys. And but they did it no time limit, and they did pay tribute. They were like, we saw the vibe that we were getting from Kasai, and we liked that, but we also wanted to bring in that no time limit flavors, just so you could give a different approach and film it and all consolidate it down. And they've done it as kind of an Ultimate Fighter kind of vibe. And
cool.
It's a really cool thing. So if you get the opportunity, I know after all this week, so take the week off afterwards. But get the opportunity to watch it because they're doing it like an installment series. So they just put up their first episode, and they had like Rafael Domingos in a match with Hawley.
He's a match with who?
In a match with Jordan Hawley.
Okay.
And it's fun. I've seen a little sneak preview of things.
Those are two fun guys to watch.
So yeah,
I love Domingos' flying triangles and stuff. Yeah.
His salsa is. I just remember one of the EBIs when I looked over and I was like, "Who is this man? Who is salsa dancing and turning that into a pass?" Like, couldn't on my worst day come anywhere close to being able to do something like that.
I'll give you a tip. There's I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like you got to scroll way down. But there's a YouTube video of Canuto and Domingos sort of fun rolling, like trying out all their crazy crap on each other. It's so entertaining.
It's part of the reason why I like going to Vegas every once in a while is just because, like I said, with Canuto, you're in a room and you're like, what am I doing here? But then you get to see the fun of, like, the Moose Messis are there too, and you just you're a fly on the wall and you just go, this is insane. Like, I'm watching caliber of IBJJF matches and caliber of on a super fight stage in this room. So I always feel very, very happy to see those things. I'm going to put you on the spot, though. Who's going to win? Who wins? Who wins your tournament this weekend? And mind you, I know what I'm doing because I also am thinking like a promoter, because someone will see this who did not get named, and if they win, that will get you more attention. So yes, making a bold proclamation will only do good things in the future because these guys know that you brought them in for a reason. So who wins?
That was a really good try, but...
All right. I hear you, and I'm just telling you, I just was about to give you a whole bunch of SEO to go ahead and ride, but I guess if you just don't like traction for your events, it's no big deal.
Yeah, what are you going to do? I'll tell you, I think a couple of the guys to beat are going to be Joao, because at the end of the day, there's still points. And, he and his brother I get to train with them from time to time, which is an absolute honor and privilege, are some of the greatest points fighters, you can ever imagine. Like, you can blink and all of a sudden you're, if somebody's keeping score, you're down 11-0. Yeah. Calistine and Gio know, they could score points on anybody also. But remember, we reward submission attempts. Mm-hmm. So, two guys like that are submission hunters. John Calistine fought Gianni Grippo, who's our champion at 155. Gianni's stud. And Kalstein, he had just come off that victory at EBI, where he submitted everybody before he got to Geo in the finals. I think he submitted everybody like under a minute in total time. And then he won in overtime against Geo. Just put him on the map. He filled in, I remember, for Eddie Cummings, who got hurt. And so instantly on the map, so we put him against Gianni. And they did sub only, so I guess who knows how it would have played out if maybe Gianni would have played it differently. But, there weren't any, I didn't really see any points scored. Maybe Gianni wasn't trying as hard to score points because it didn't matter.
Sure.
But Kalstein, had a couple of, attempted, either heel hook or ankle lock. And, might have, depending on how the refs would have viewed it, might have been given a point because in Kasai, there's no advantage. You get points for that.
Mm-hmm. So
I always think of like these guys, if somebody's good enough, and I could name every single other guy in the card, Junie, Red, Geo, Kalstein, just more of this, have a good sub background. All of them are capable of never having their guards passed because I've rarely ever seen any of them have their guard passed, maybe never, and then putting on a good submission. So any of them could win any of these matches. And then the two wild cards, which I love, are Imanari and Barata.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the good fortune to watch Imanari all these years. And he literally, I think it's hard to deny, he's probably the most exciting fighter on the planet and has been for for over a decade. He'll do stuff that you'll never see before. Barata, I've had the good fortune to actually train with. He is the sneakiest guy you'll ever see. Watch any of his matches. They're just you can't close your eyes. I mean, they're so exciting. So, and then I left out Ashley Williams, who, he's just almost beat almost everybody he's ever fought.
I gotta say, though, because I don't envy you guys when this happens, but when you do have a pullout or you have something go on, these guys all start their campaigns, right? And, Junie's hitting me up and Ash is hitting me up. And I'm like, listen, dude, I'm happy to put the cause in. But the problem is I'm looking over at Junie and he has just as good of a claim. You have a good claim. I have to be Switzerland here. I wish you well. Good luck. I was like, but I have told people, I'm like, I'll make you a deal now. If you want me to put in a good word for you, you have to say that I need to be the person to replace our good friend Josh Palmer when he's unavailable.
Oh.
So I was like, if you guys really want to make a thing, then you have me replace him because I'm not going to put in a word for you anymore. Now you guys can do that because I'm like sitting there waiting to poison his soup or wait for when he falls down the wrong way and be like, oh, Josh, no, that's so sad. Hey, anyway, welcome to Kasai, everybody.
So is this a podcast or a job interview?
No. I mean, here's the thing. I love Josh. I think that Josh is the only broadcaster in grappling. And I love that guy so much. And I love giving him mess. But I've made it pretty clear. If he's not available, I am. So.
Well, I didn't know that. And now you're first on our list.
Oh, well, Jesus. That was easy. It was like, so now easy. I'm going to figure out a flight situation.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to start.
In case somebody like Tanya Harding,
listen,
hits him with a steel pipe.
I'll tell you this much. I think Josh knows me well enough to know that I'm not above it. So I think he would expect it. And I'd be like, if I hit him and I clubbed out his knee, he'd be like, you idiot, I can still talk. And I'm like, oh, right. Ugh.
No, Josh is the absolute best. So super knowledgeable. But I will tell you something. For our last tournament in Orlando, Josh couldn't make it. I forgot what he had, but it was something super important with his family or wife or something. I forgot what it was. And he couldn't make it, and it was killing him. And we said, no problem, Josh. And we got, our usual color commentary announcers are either Sean Williams. By the way, you got to give Sean the same props as you give Josh, because Sean...
hold on. No. I have...
He's just color, though.
But here's the thing. Sean and Kenny's probably about as close as you get to like an athlete who's a broadcaster because he's had so much experience. But Kenny has so much knowledge that I feel
amazing.
If you really have him do the broadcaster's job of doing the narrative, you don't let him excel at what he does best. And I know that Josh knows a lot, but he does what I like to do, which is, hey man, I want to pull it out of you. And that's why I have immense respect for Josh, because it's him, myself. There's a gentleman in here who's trying to apply for the job named Jay Regal Budo, who's also great. I love Jay, but Big J's behind me. But these guys, these are the people who I respect, who do as much as they can on being the true broadcaster. And I feel like that's a hard job, because because
you're a straight man. Yeah.
Well, most commentary partners, when you put them together, do this. I know more about jiu-jitsu. Oh, I know more about jiu-jitsu, and here's why. And it's an underscored thing that they're just trying to say who knows more about jiu-jitsu, because they're not working in unison. They're actually just saying different levels of what they are. So for me, I love Sean. I think Sean is great, and I love the teams that you've put together between Sean and Kenny and Josh. I think, honestly, those guys are professionals. So I have no qualms.
Yeah, no, it's part of the Kasai story. I mean, from the day we started, I wanted to have Kenny, because for a variety. First of all, I love the guy. We've gotten to know each other really well over the years, but also because I think he's just so super knowledgeable and so just smooth, at the mic, and also, selfishly, he adds credibility to your promotion.
Yep.
He's a legit star,
and he's a draw.
Yeah. And then Kenny couldn't do our first event. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And but then Sean became available, and I was like, wow. Okay. And then what we ended up doing, because Kenny has a pretty busy schedule, we just it kind of works out. Kenny does the shows when he can do them, and Sean does the shows when he can do them. And this one time we couldn't get Josh, so it's nice to rotate 3 people, I guess, is the answer.
So.
And Josh's British accent just makes him sound smarter.
But he's listen, I have
so maybe you can work on the British thing, and maybe.
Listen, here's the thing. He's not funny. I'm funny, and I actually, as a comic, you learn how to do different impressions. So I'm pretty sure I can do one of him. But the one umbrage thing that I have to take with him is he always says on the microphone, and it makes me laugh every time. He's like, "All right, we're gonna have a grapple now," and I was like, "No one says that. No one says we're gonna have a grapple. You little cute little jujitsuer, you." So that makes me laugh, because I'm always like, it's so quaint.
I never heard that one. It's funny. I watched the whole show live. I sit right next to him. I can't hear a word they're saying. And the show's over, and everybody, it's just, we've been through the atmosphere. We've gone through everything. The show's over. It's like that high right before you crash. And I always look at them, and I look at Josh, and I look at Kenny or Sean, and I literally say, great job, guys. And every time they say thank you, and I literally couldn't hear a word they said.
Oh no!
But then I go back, and we get Flo sends us the
final product,
the uncut broadcast. It's like 5.5 hours, and I just literally listened to it probably twice, and in pieces here and there, and then I give them a legitimate commentary. But I'll tell you, just the last thing I'll say. I'm sure your viewers didn't tune in to hear all great things about these guys, but the Canuto controversy, or the judges overruled the head ref's decision. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. Looking at a videotape replay, first time in our show we ever had to do that. I listened to it after. Kenny and Sean, spot on. They everybody in the crowd. I remember at the time people looking at each other. What happened? Did time run out? I mean, nobody had any idea what was going on. They were explaining piece by piece what. And these guys know their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Great compliment too. And I remember actually complimenting that live, because I always tell people, I'm like, when things go wrong, it's the hardest job in the world to be on that microphone and make people feel at ease, and to explain it to them in very clear and precise terms, because sometimes you just sit there and go, well, I don't know what's happening. We're gonna find out when you guys do. So smoke them if you got them. We're going to take a quick break. That's not what live TV does.
Or let me tell you about a story about, something. Yeah, I get it. No, they were all over it. You brought up something else also about, sort of star making. We talked about the pro qualifiers. But, there's a bunch of guys, I think, that you said Canuto, you think of him as a Kasai guy. Hopefully. I think he thinks of himself as a Kasai guy. The rules fit him perfectly, and boy, does he bring his game.
Mr. Kasai.
And he's so exciting. He's we love it. We think of him as Kasai. But, some other guys that have really shined on the Kasai stage, Dante Leon is a good example. Dante tore through, and I mean that was a great match against Canuto. Dante just got his invite to ADCC, so we're so happy when these guys get recognized for their efforts on our stage as well. Same and Dante just got a super fight with another promotion, so I think rumor has it. So Dante's doing great. Mateus Ludus. I mean, did anybody know who Mateus Ludus was before he won our pro qualifier and came on our stage? I mean, of course, people that fought him knew him because he's the toughest. But he's a brown belt, and just people just knew him as the baddest ass brown belt that they ever fought. Now he's gotten all sorts of other offers, and he was at Spider and some other things. So there's lots of guys like that. Tex. Everybody knew Tex was great. We knew Tex was capable of doing something as dramatic as what he did to Penna.
I know. I mean, the beautiful part so I have several different reactions to that. One is always, wow, that's cool. Then it's always, oh, I hope Philippe's okay because ADCC and oh man. And then the third reaction is always like, oh, I'm so happy for you guys. That thing's going to go viral so quick. Like, when you get those moments, because here's the thing that I think I've said about you guys that I really do sincerely mean. Because there's so much effort to make it better. The broadcasters, the pre-packages, the athletes, the treatment of them, you root for you guys. So when you've had certain kind of stall outs or certain kind of little things, I think we're way more willing to say like, hey, hold on. Let them finish. Like, let's see how this plays out. And at worst case scenario, you have a so-so event once in a while. But more importantly, you guys have tweaked the rules. You have considerably made adjustments at every step of the way. And I think that has made us always root for you guys. So always know that you've got us watching. And one of the fun times that we've had, myself and my good friend John Evans, we did a little watch commentary, like a fight companion on one of these. And I had a blast because as I was telling people, as I was like, man, what makes it so great is when the athletes are being treated well, and then everything else falls into place. Then suddenly they get these great submissions out of nowhere and you're like, where did that come from? Oh, right. They're appreciated. And they're taken care of like professionals, which I think is a missing component in our sport. Rich, I know you are a busy man. I have to ask though, do we see you at ADCC or will you be watching at home? What happens to you then? Do you then make your trip on out here to see how things go in the beautiful Los Angeles area? Or do you be watching from home sort of a thing?
I already booked my ticket. I'll be at ADCC.
Beautiful. Rich, we are so excited about your event this weekend.
And by the way, I'm going to bring my shorts and rash guard in case somebody gets hurt.
Absolutely. I mean, man, you know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I 100%, when I have put together a tournament and I'm on the microphone, I have 100% for every invitational I've put together, I have my gear in a bag. And the reason being is because I always look and say, if somebody drops out, I'm going to have to Vince McMahon this because nobody can go home unhappy. Like, I am willing to be the buy for somebody to get them through so that we have a show that's always going on. So don't do that for ADCC. Keep that for you, your event, because I think people would be like, oh man, he just saved Kasai right now. He just put himself in the 8-man right now. I think people would go nuts on that sort of a thing. Or if you have a super fight, who knows? Maybe we've got another, CEO businessman who's looking for a good time.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my my opponents.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And pardon me if this is intruding too much, but when do we find out the brackets?
Oh, good question. We usually don't set the brackets until the guys get to New York.
Okay.
Or New Jersey in this case.
Sure.
Or wherever they land. Because we just want to make sure everybody's there, because it just throws everything off if something, God forbid, happens to one of the guys, they get hurt. Like when we see them and they're healthy, then we announce the brackets. I think we have in our head what the brackets are going to be.
Okay.
So the next couple of days.
Okay. I mean, when weigh-ins happen, essentially, or people get into town.
Yeah. I think the day before. Everybody comes in Thursday. A Kasai show is a production. I mean, I can't even describe this. I mean, I'm sure any show requires, a lot of pre-fight work. But we have all the fighters come in even a day before that, and we film them. We photograph them, and because if you watch our shows, you see a whole up close and personal.
Yep.
It's not just like, hey, what's your name? It's we film them for half hour, 40 minutes, and we splice out the best parts. We take photos. We use it. We make it in. I dare say I don't think UFC has anything on us as far as production value and time and effort and amount of thought that goes into every detail of these shows. So that's kind of what makes it fun. My analogy always is like you watch the Olympics, and there's a lot of sports that I don't know about you, but I get sucked into watching, diving or rhythmic gymnastics.
Yeah.
And why am I watching? Because I watch that up close and personal on the guy who lost his father, and he's got, and you get sort of emotionally invested in some of this stuff and these people, and the same kind of thing. We're just trying to create that through social media, through all the pre-fight, pre-production stuff we do, all the post-production stuff we do, the stuff at the event. So we just try to treat the athletes right and try to make it the highest production value show we possibly can.
Absolutely.
And Atlantic City is going to be hot. Just by the way, just I'd say it, you didn't ask, but we're doing the weigh-ins on the boardwalk. On the beach.
That's awesome.
On the beach next to the boardwalk, which would be really cool. And it's going to be a bit of a spectator event. There's tons of people out in Atlantic City. We're expecting like a nice big crowd. The event is almost sold out. We took one of the biggest room it was the biggest room they had, but they told us the maximum capacity. We said, yeah, I think they could fit more people in there than that. And thankfully we did, because we're way into the extra innings there. We filled up their supposed normal capacity already. We're into the extra capacity now. So it's going to be rocking. And the other thing is, you watch a lot of jiu-jitsu, and sometimes they're quiet. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if it's like a 16 mat thing, there's noise, but they're all like separate little things.
Yeah.
This is so cool to have. In this case, we'll have like over 2,000 people there, just literally hovering over one giant white mat. So it's hopefully be a ton of fun. And a lot of people made a nice weekend. Like all the South Jersey guys are coming, but a lot of New Yorkers and guys from Philly and down the Mid-Atlantic are coming and got hotel rooms and just staying the weekend. So it should be a really cool weekend.
You guys are putting, like I said, it's never short on effort and execution, and I think you guys are, dare I say, the most professional out there. So it's a great thing to see you guys do that. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a pin in the conversation. You guys are going to throw a great event, and here's what I'd love to do is bring you back on Grappling Hour. As I mentioned to people here, the biggest thing that I love doing on this is talking with people about matches after they happen. So I would love the opportunity to get some of your time to talk afterwards, because then we've got matches to talk about, and then we've got stories. So I'd love to book out another time with you once it's all said and done, sir.
For sure. Well, you asked the right guy, because one of my best fringe benefits is I get the front row seat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Rich for his time. If you guys have not done so and you are in the Atlantic City area, go buy yourself a ticket. Let's support Grappling that is supporting the grapplers themselves, takes care of them, truly cares. And if you cannot make it on out that way, it is going to be streaming on Flow Grappling. You definitely want to see there. We've got a lot of great people. That 8-man tournament's going to be fire. You honestly, Rich, I mean, he declined to tell me who he thought would win. That's how close it's going to be. And more importantly, I want you guys to really support the undercard as well, because those people get shine that they normally wouldn't get in other scenarios. So we're very excited for those opportunities. Rich, I cannot thank you enough. We will see you again very soon, sir.
Thank you, Raf.
All right, guys. So here's what I need you to do. If you have the opportunity right now, stay on this, because we've got Tony Birchak coming up after the break. We've got some commercials, I guess, coming up to go ahead and pay the bills and all that sort of good stuff. We'll see you in just a second, you guys. I just have this theory. Are as competitive in video games as they are when they compete on the big stage.
This is a formal challenge to any Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt out there. See me at the Cade, and you'll get this work. You don't want this smoke, because
Okay.
I'm a video game great.
That
No,
makes-
I'm just okay. I'm just really good at Street Fighter, I guess. I mean, it'd be fun. Let's do it. And I would call somebody out for sure.
Okay. You don't have anybody you'd call out right now?
Keenan Cornelius.
You think you'd do it?
I think I'd beat Keenan Cornelius in any fighting game.
Whoa. Any fighting game?
Keenan Cornelius, challenge me Street Fighter 5. Boom.
Okay.
Street
you
Fighter
guys,
5.
Wow. you
Keenan
guys heard it
Cornelius versus me, Street Fighter 5. Let's do it.
first. Okay. Hey, what's up, everybody? Well, that was a fun series of interviews. We've had Keith on already, and we just finished talking with Rich. We are not done. We still have a lot more show to go. Right now, we're going to go ahead and cut to, in just a second, an interview that I conducted earlier today with our good friend Anthony Birchak, and we talk a lot about what he's got going on this week. He's going to be competing at the Kinetic Grappling event, which I will be a part of. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, it's Uriah Faber putting together a team grappling extravaganza, and Tony got selected as one of the individuals in a special super fight that is going to be coming up. So I want you guys to stick around for that conversation, and then after that, we're going to have our interview with Werther Marciales. But for right now, let's go ahead and check in with our good friend, Tony Birchak. We'll see you guys after the break. And if you haven't added Grappling Hour, do so at all of our major social media, which is Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at Grappling Hour. I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Tony. Hello, ladies and gents. We hope that you guys are enjoying yourself. Well, here's the nice part about today. We have a lot of interviews, and I'm so stoked, especially when you see your friends get on cards that just kind of pop up out of the blue. Now, I know that they've been working to make grappling more accessible to the UFC audience, and that makes it very exciting for us, especially when we look on Fight Pass and there are less and less fights that are Fight Pass exclusive. We want more grappling. Well, guess what? Uriah Faber and friends are making that happening with an event called Kinetic, and that is taking place out of Anaheim out here in Los Angeles. And I'm very stoked about that because I got to see one of my friends is going to be on one of the special matches for that. We're going to find out about that and a little bit about his origin story. I mean, you've seen him on the show before. You know who he is. I'm excited to bring him on. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, our friend, Anthony Birchak. Anthony, how are you doing, sir?
What's up, dude?
So, Tony, how did you get put on this card?
So this is an interesting story, and Sean Wheelock has commentated several of my fights. He commentated me when I was in Bellator, commentated me at Combates, and he commentated me versus Ulysses Gomez in Las Vegas, which was a Randy Couture fight for the troops kind of little event, and we were one of the special grappling matches there. And so like a month ago, I got a DM from Sean saying, hey, you need to hit me up. I got a big opportunity, a sub-only grappling match. Let me know if you're interested. And I just threw him like a thumbs up. You know what I mean? I didn't even say anything because I was kind of getting ready for LFA. And after LFA happened, he texted me one morning and was like, hey, I need to talk to you like now. And I was like, okay. So I was like, I'm getting to the gym. Let me get to the gym, get everything situated, and I'll give you a call. And he was like, hey, dude, he goes, I know you're like one of the hottest dudes in sub only, and that you're doing really, really well and fighting as well, and you got a lot of momentum. He's like, I reached out to you before, but I felt bad that I didn't pay attention that you had a fight, and I didn't want to kind of cloud your mind and overload you with, okay, I got a match, then you got to fight, and then you got to think about this. He goes, but once I saw that your fight went like a minute 30, he goes, I wanted to hit you up and see if you're still interested. So within that time that I just threw him the thumbs up, I guess he hit up Boogeyman, and Boogie was going to take the match in my spot. And then he said he came all the way back around to me after my fight. So the opponent is Rafion Stotts. I've studied him many times. He's the number one contender for the LFA bantamweight title. He's 12-1. He's a really, really tough dude. He's a two-time NCAA Division II wrestling national champion from the University of Nebraska-Kearney. He's out of there at Rufus Sport with the Pettis brothers. He wrestles with Ben Askren all the time. He's got the pedigree. He's got the training partners. He's a really, really tough opponent. But out of those 12 victories, he only has 3 submissions. And one of them was kind of like a ground and pound. I'm just putting too much punches on you, and the guy turned his back and gave up the neck easy. So, I'm really interested in to see what his strictly just grappling style is like.
Let me ask, what's the name of this guy again? Or his first name?
Rafion Stotts. It's Raufeon.
Okay, because for a split second, and maybe it's just my own hearing, it sounded like you said Raphael, and I know that your last opponent at LFA was Raphael, and I was like, yo, you need to stop with trying to take us all out. I'm not a fan. That's a dope thing, dude. And Sean has been a very good force in terms of giving back to the community. I've seen his work. I know the guy from his work. I've never met him personally, but a lot of people have spoken very highly of him. So that was very cool that he would do that and keep a lookout for you. Were you looking to kind of come back? Because here's the thing. We're going to talk about your LFA match as well, but when you have that quick of a match, are you looking to get right back at it? Because
oh yeah, absolutely. Because I'm in phenomenal shape, and this is the first time that I'm going into a jiu-jitsu match in MMA shape. So I don't know what that's like. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I've been winning these jiu-jitsu things just kind of like puttering around, drinking, 2 6-packs of beer a week and eating, Krispy Kreme donuts and shit. So that's my jiu-jitsu regimen. So when I jumped back in after being in, I hadn't had beer in like 70 days. I haven't, hit my vape pen. I haven't done anything, literally zero. So I'm 100% cleaned up my diet, 100% cleaned up my diet, cleaned up everything, and made sure that I went into my fight as clean as possible, So to be able to do that for jiu-jitsu and still have that kind of gas tank and that kind of strength and, not have to worry about eliminating anything from my daily life, that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the last times, and I may have this privileged information, you probably did have a drink, was around your birthday, because that was before the fight, and I know that it's one of those things where it's a clearinghouse where you go, all right, you got all these birthdays in the month of May that you guys have to take care of. May,
Yeah.
June. And then you go into your fight, you get into that camp, and you're like, all right. And then all the work going into camp, and then all of a sudden you're done in like 20 seconds, and you're just kind of like, does somebody want to go now? Like, what do you, like, can we do this again? Or
you know what's crazy is I've been having this really weird thing after even my jiu-jitsu matches, because a lot of them haven't gone the distance lately. I have a really hard time coming down, and like I'm still in the back, and I'm like at this level where my heart rate's not dropping. I'm ready to go 100%, and that's how it was after this fight. I was just sitting in the back, and like I started crying, and they're like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "Dude, I just can't come down. I still have so much more in me, like my chest. Like I've worked so hard, and I didn't get that full release of combat. You know what I mean? And it was kind of something that just it's fulfilling in the way that I finished the fight, but it's not fulfilling because I didn't actually have to use everything that I went in there with.
Yep. That's again, it's very interesting to interview all of these athletes because you finish the fight with the amount of damage you want to take, which is none. You get in, you get out, which is great. It's just a matter of, you find that true martial artists always say, I was working on these things and I want to show all these things off. So
yeah, for sure.
It's like a little bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, I saw you at the last Combat Jiu-Jitsu event, the fight night, and when I saw you there, you won, and, it was a good match, but then I saw you kind of pacing around behind me as I'm taking photos. And I could recognize that with you, where I was like, "Yeah, that come down's not happening yet." You know what I mean? Like you're still in it.
Yeah, I even forgot about that one because I was still in the back and like little Chewy's like ready, so I'm like, "Dude, I could still go. Like let's move around. Like I'll grapple with you. Let's keep you warm." And that's where I used it for was giving it back to Chewy and giving him the rest of the sweat that I had in me.
And that's cool. I mean, again, it's it's what is it? It was a first fighter world problems or something. It's like
first world fighter problems.
You know what I mean? Like you're just kind of sitting there and being like, "Oh, I guess I won super quick." I do want to ask you about that. We're gonna circle back to LFA, but I do want to ask though. So with this opportunity coming up and with Fight Pass, like, did you know about this event either until he had texted you?
No, I mean, I would have known about it about a month ago.
Sure.
But I just gave him one of those, and then that was it. So, no, I had no idea until about 10. So it was 10 days after my fight, and then 10 days before Kinetic. So it literally was a quick turnaround, and then that was the first thing I understand. So. Keith Veltri, who runs Roy Jones Boxing, and then Uriah Faber and Sean Wheelock are all the partners in this. Yep. And I think what happened was when Uriah went to Polaris to grapple Mickey, I think they came back and was like, "Yo, we could do this thing. Like, we could do this better. We can put it on Fight Pass. We can, all three of us use our connections and really put together an amazing event."
And it's funny because I even saw him at Quintet about a year ago. It's almost we're coming just short of a year because it was back in October.
The Las Vegas one, right? The one that happened in Las Vegas.
And I remember seeing Uriah have so much fun even then, and just kind of like I've interviewed him a few times, and even when he was fighting regularly, I was like, "Are you going to stick around for grappling? Because we'd love to have you." You bring a good wrestling style to it, and I think that's sometimes needed with a lot of our butt scooters. So I'm a big fan, And he was like, at the time, he's like, "Yeah, I think I would be interested, man. Totally, yeah." And then here I see him at Quintet, and I'm like, it felt good to see him doing that because what his shine can do for other people.
Yeah, but and then you saw what happened, right? It's like he dipped his toes back in after he retired. He dipped his toes in the grappling pool, and then goes, "Damn, I'm not done competing. Yeah. Like I'm gonna go do this fighting shit again." You know what I mean?
Right. I always it's so funny because I don't beseech him anything. If you're young enough and you're healthy enough, do what you need to do. But it's hard for me to keep a straight face when they're just like, "Yeah, dude, I'm retired." And I'm like, "Sure you are."
Sure.
I'll see you in 2 months.
So I'll see you in a month?
Yeah, exactly.
In 2 months? What are we doing?
I'm like, "You're so retired, you're out of USADA's pool, right?" Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I just know
that's you can just see then when people And you know what? Like, he's not one of those guys where I'm like, oh, dude, you know, you need
Yeah.
to retire.
Yeah.
Like, no, his brain and everything's intact. He's still got his wits about him. You know what I mean? Or it seems like, I don't know, maybe he has stuff on the side, but
I'll tell you this much: he can get away with it with the California laid backness. It's the most
from what
disarming
we
thing you'll
see-
ever see.
Yeah, from what we see, he looks pretty put together. So he's not one of those guys that I would be like, dude, like we need to really think about retirement. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's still one of the greatest of all time. You know?
And it's weird because he's in such a great place that even when he did pick up his quick win, about a month and change ago, people were already being like, well, who makes a natural opponent for him? And they're like, are we talking Triple C? You know, are we doing this? And you're just looking over and you go, how smart is it to come back at right this time to be like, you're back in the mix very quickly.
Yeah.
So either way, I mean, like I said, for me, I think you get to a certain level with being the legend that he is, where you can give back, and I have seen him do that. And I saw a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff at Quintet that I think was really, really positive in the way he treated the fighters and the way he saw them, and that made me feel very much like, you know, this is not just a dude who's coming to be on a show and collect a paycheck. This means a little bit more to him. So when I heard he was behind this, two things happened. First, I heard he was doing interviews, which I said, gross, you go somewhere else. But then I heard he was behind it, and I was like, well, if you pay for it, you might as well get the interview if you want. But I'm very excited to see how this event goes. The reason why I asked is just because, to me, it came out of the blue. Like, they did it so well in how they brought it out.
It fell in my lap, and I feel like it just fell in everybody's lap.
Yeah. And it was nice because dude, the minute I saw them put up an Instagram page, I was already in touch and being like, I want to do it. I want to be there. It sounds like a fun event. I'm a huge fan of these team grappling events. I think that they have a certain kind of momentum that's really hard to build. And having gotten to commentate one at Subversive, people were like, oh, hey, man, you know, I got some nice compliments from that. But the thing I was telling people is I was like, that was the easiest thing I've ever had to commentate because the drama's already built in. Yeah. You know, you're just being the soundtrack and you're telling the story. Like, Kyle Chambers competing and you're just narrating what's happening to him is already, you know, the story. You see what a good competitor he is, and then you see the conflict that he has. So it's just like, I literally was just sitting back in the booth being like, well, this is easy. This is the easiest paycheck I'm going to collect. These idiots don't know that. But anyway, well, dude, I'm very stoked that you're going to be on that one. Let's talk at LFA. Again, we talked about the element of it being quick. What were some of the things that you were working on? Like, what were the things that you were looking at expecting in this fight?
Well, I mean, it couldn't have gone more perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I've had a huge resurgence in my wrestling and grappling, which I started off with, you know, and initially I was supposed to fight Nolan Hernandez, who got moved up to UFC on 3 days' notice, and ended up fighting Chito. And, you know, I was so just fucking bitter. And not for the fact that he got the call, because I expected him to get the call. I was bitter because I knew that the match between us was sending the winner to the UFC.
Yep.
You know? And then it just proved that by him getting the call the week, you know, of that UFC. On top of that, his manager also manages Chito. So in my mind, it's like, okay, you had one of your highest earners have a guy fall out.
Yeah.
And you can't have that happen. So you put in one of your other guys to fight him and left me out in the cold.
Yeah.
You know, and like I took to Twitter and I was kind of a fucking asshole about it. And I you know, said my piece of like, I think that's shady and I think that's like some really bad business practices. But it's the most genius business move you can make is have two of your guys fight each other so you make double the money.
Yep.
Like, yeah, a lot of people go, oh, well, that's bad ethics. And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Money's green. So I still have to have a phone conversation with that manager. I have to apologize to him because I should have just kept the shit talk strictly to Nolan Hernandez, because he out of nowhere just attacked me on Twitter one day saying like, oh, you said no to me, bitch, and blah, 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 just going off, right? And I was like, sorry. I was like, your name never even slid across my desk. Like, I don't even know who you are. And he's like, you know who I am. LFA offered you me, blah, blah, blah. And I like looked at my emails and finally like I saw it and I was like, oh, I was like, you're right, I did. I said, the reason I said no to you on 2 weeks notice is because you're a legitimate threat. I said, give me a full camp and I have no problem fighting you. And he's like, fuck your full camp. Are you a fighter or not? And I was like, no, there's a difference. I'm a fucking businessman. And fighting you on short notice isn't good business. So once I got the whole 8-week camp, and I'm like, it's time now, he gets pulled, and then I'm shit out of luck, you know. And the whole thing that I was working on that whole camp, I ended up giving it to, you know, Rafael Montini, because my wrestling and my grappling is absolutely my number one right now, and my striking is very dangerous, but I will always say that's the weakest link in my chain. It may not look like it's the weakest link in my chain, but I'm always going to tell you that my striking is the weakest link in my chain because my jiu-jitsu and my wrestling is just so strong. And, you know, I started getting scared the week of the fight because I'm like, man, I really don't know anything about this guy. You know what I mean? Like, then all of a sudden someone told me, like, yeah, dude, he's been fighting for like 20 years. Like, he was a professional kickboxer in Brazil. And then I was like, oh, shit. And then, oh, man, he's a BJJ black belt. Like, okay, those are 2/3 of something that is a lot. Like, you stand up striking, you wrestle, and then you do jiu-jitsu. He's got 2/3 of that chart covered. You know what I mean? So he's dangerous. And, you know, on fight night, I got to the arena. The fight started at 5. Main card started at 7. I was already warming up at 5 p.m. You know what I mean? I was just ready to go. And my coaches are like, yo, sit down, chill out, like, relax. And I kept building my heart rate up, and I would let it drop. And then I'd build it up, and I would let it drop. I'd build it up and let it drop. And by the time I went out, it was my last build-up, and I was just ready to go. So, you know, me getting in there and you know, he was biting on all of my feints, biting on all my fakes. And finally, once I made the decision to, you know, enter an attack and get in on a double leg, he went down to the canvas super easy, and I was like, wow, you're little. Like, I clinched him, and I was like, you're not as strong as these dudes that I've been grappling. And once he hit the deck, it was over from there.
I mean, that photo was instantly memeable, so we saw a number of our friends take a stab at it, so that was very funny.
So many good ones came out,
it's just
right?
so funny. And I mean, like, it's one of those iconic kind of end fight photos that you look at and you go, yeah, that's pretty dope. And then when you realize that you give that opportunity to all these other people to go ahead and start memeing it, you go, yeah, no, it's even funnier now. Because, I mean, I don't know that our audience could get that, but just the look, it's just all of our friends saying really funny shit about it. And I have such a great sense of humor about these sort of things, but I'm more so encapsulated by the fact that not only do we have our friends making fun of that, but now there's an account specifically dedicated to you and making fun of photos of you.
Don't fucking say it.
Listen, I didn't make this. If I made it, I'd probably be like, I don't know. Sources say some guy made this. I didn't have nothing to do with this other than I got asked to be an adjudicator for the best ones. And the best part is,
God.
You know, the hardest thing about doing this to a comic is you get Steve Martin disease. And Steve Martin disease is when he goes to host SNL, he's been there forever, right? And people come up to Steve Martin and they say, hey, Steve, they pitch something. And they famously are like, he doesn't respond. And they'll be like, oh, did you not like that? And Steve Martin will be like, no, that kills. That's great.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens. Like, I look at a meme and I go, no, that's amazing. And they'll be like, do you think it's funny?
When the Birchak memes page dropped, there like the first 6 memes, my only comment was fuck you and fuck this page. That was it. Every one that came out, I said fuck you and fuck this page. And like they DM me like, are you really mad? I was like, no, I don't care, but it's fuck you and fuck this page.
It's just it's absurd, right?
Yeah, it's hilarious, but yeah, man, and you should see the ones that don't get posted. Like, there's a vetting process. Don't get me wrong. He'll send me shit, and he's like, "Is this too bad?" And I'm like, "Yeah, don't post that one."
Well, the reason is just even the photo of it for the page. The one that did me in is, and a better show would have this already set to go, but this photo is just, I don't know
damn it.
what to do with that. Like, It's just every time I see that photo, and it's become like your main icon photo. But I look at it and I just think like, what a world, man. You know, when you signed up to be a fighter, I don't know that you figured this was going to be part of the journey.
No, man, not at all. We live in a day and age where like memes and just weird social media shit happen all the time, and we have to be okay with it. Like that, and that picture was made by another black belt here in town. He's not even from my school. He's from a rival school, and I was
funny.
like, God damn it.
That's great. Again, so sometimes you have, conversely, you have what I call bird droppings, where you have like a cat that like brings you in a bird and they drop it there and you go, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
They're like, but here I gave it to you, and you go,
But here it's for you.
yeah. And I look at this memes of you and I go, well, good. I'm glad Tony's got a great sense of humor about this, because I mean, I've had memes made about me, and it's one of those things where you say, live by the sword, die by the sword, kind of a
For
thing.
sure.
Where I'm like,
hey,
hey,
I've
listen.
roasted some people pretty bad, so I'm getting my meme karma now.
But I tell people, I'm like, listen, the best thing you can do is have a good sense of humor about it. And like I say, the hard part is I just tell people, I'm like, they better be funny. And I was like,
Well, what's funny is like, can you still see me? Sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
A couple people like messaged me and they're like, yo, dude, pull that look off. Like, that looked good. And I was like, fuck no. Are you kidding me?
So, speaking a little bit about origin stories, I would love to get a little bit, because we've never actually discussed this, I guess, when we've talked before. How did MMA find its way into your life? Because for me, I've just always known you as a fighter. Like, before we knew each other, I followed you as a fighter, and I knew about you, and of course, our circles brought us together, but I would have never known that. I mean, I could recall watching you on Ryzen or whatever the fuck they call it. And I remember tweeting, like, I remember live tweeting and being like, oh, there's Tony, and being like, I remembered you from years and years ago. So where does that happen?
So I started in 2008 after I had my son, and after I was done wrestling for the university, Grand Canyon University in Arizona. That was my final season. And I had to make a lot of life changes. I had to leave Phoenix and move back to Tucson with my family where I could have more help with my newborn. And then I ended up linking up with Drew Fickett, who's an amazing jiu-jitsu black belt. And at that time was one of the top UFC fighters. He's fought Nick Diaz, Carl Parisian, Steve Pellegrino, or what's his name? There's a Pellegrino. They used to call him Batman.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Kurt Pellegrino.
Kurt Pellegrino, thank you.
Steve Pellegrino's in Las Vegas, but Kurt Pellegrino. But yeah, he fought some amazing dudes. So he took me under his wing. Was taking me from being a wrestler into being a jiu-jitsu guy. Like a full grappler. Mm-hmm. And I made my MMA debut in 2009 in Nogales, Arizona, behind a movie theater. And I don't know if you remember that scene in Here Comes the Boom where like the chickens are running around and like, oh, dude, they had like a mariachi playing like the Star Spangled Banner. Like it was crazy. And I ended up winning by submission, and that took I think a minute 20 for me to get the rear naked choke. And then I had told people like I just wanted to try it, see if I could do it. And then the next thing I knew, I was addicted, and I was on this journey. And I literally just this last July, I just had my 10-year anniversary on July 4th, 2019. So if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would have been a professional fighter, I would have laughed in your face and told you there's no fucking way. And, along my journey, I've been able to fight for some of the biggest promotions, recently just being LFA. I've fought for the MFC, Ryzen, UFC, Bellator. It's been a tremendous journey. And now where I'm at in this journey was that I was having a lot of hard times finding fights right after Ryzen. So I took to sub-only grappling, and really that was the emphasis of my focus. And I accidentally got good at jiu-jitsu because that's what I was doing the whole time, just competing jiu-jitsu. And by reigniting that spark of pure grappling, it's pushed my MMA confidence back up, So Mike Tyson said something, success breeds confidence and confidence breeds success. And it's cyclical, right? Like you have to have one to have the other. And the success that I had in MMA early was cool. And then all of a sudden I hit this lull, you know what I mean? This plateau. And I felt like, okay, I'm old, I'm washed up, maybe I should retire. And then sub-only grappling kind of was a thing all of a sudden out of nowhere. And I tried my hand in that, and it was, I didn't go 76-2 like Keith did. Keith doesn't have kids and doesn't have a gym and could compete every weekend. But I went 24-2, and my only loss at my weight was to Frank Rosenthal. My other loss was to Kyle Chambers. And he had to break me off a little bit. And, the thing about it was, if I had, didn't have to run a school, and if I didn't have all these things, outside of my life, like I could definitely be running around hitting these sub-only tournaments. And it would have been something that I would love to do, but it just brought me back to what I'm one of the best at in the world. And that's fighting in MMA.
It's weird. I tell people, I'm like, when I gather the kids around, I just go, listen, kids, you don't know how easy you have it. And they'll be like, why? And I was like, well, dude, I wanted to start grappling back in 2005. I knew right there when I was watching this resurgence of the UFC, and I could see the chess element of it. And I was like, I'm not a super great athlete, but I know I can make certain things work. Like, I see the element of strategy and how they do grappling. And every time I was living in Illinois at the time, and I was doing school out there, and all of a sudden I was looking for a gym, and the closest gym was like 20 miles away. And then I leave, and then they open one up right in the neighborhood I used to live. And I was like, oh, perfect. I get recruited to go teach at Western Kentucky for their speech and debate team. And I was like, man, I really want to train. Where is there a place to train? Even my boss, who's a very nice Southern lady, was like, my son has wrestled before, and he knows all this, and there's a lot of places to train here. And I was like, well, where are they? And she goes, oh, it's about 14 miles away. And I was like, well, that's not helpful to me.
By the way, your Colonel Sanders' wife sounds amazing.
You need to meet her. You think I've invented her? That's a pretty accurate impression. She was one of those people.
That Southern draw is actually really good. I'm impressed.
Thanks, man. I famously once lost my voice when I was actually interviewing for the job. And in speech, like, I've won national titles losing my voice, where just like a major fight, you just get through it and you're like, this is my voice. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through. And then the minute you come out, you're like, oh, okay. So when I met her, I was losing my voice, but I was like, I really want this job. So I just started talking this lower drawl, and it was down here, and it worked because I was in Kentucky, and people didn't really bat an eye. But my friends were like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like,
"Yeah,
shut up, shut up."
But
I'm
they're
gonna
all
get this
just
job.
like, "Oh, he's so calm and so reserved."
It's just
That's a Southern gentleman right there.
It's one of those things where, like, in a fight, you have those flight kind of responses. It's the same thing with speech, where you're like, I'm going to make this work. I don't know how. And you realize your instrument is your voice. So when you do impressions, you kind of figure out where your register goes. So anyway, long story short, as soon as I was moving, because I was like, well, I'm moving back to LA as soon as I'm done with school here. And then they opened up another gym right as I was leaving in Western Kentucky.
God.
So now I run into fighters and grapplers who are like, oh, yeah, we're based out in Western Kentucky and at Bowling Green. I was like, cool, you weren't there when I was there. Really could have used it. Would have probably been a black belt by now, but that's okay. No big deal. I just suck. It's fine. But I tell people I don't mind things unfolding the way they did, because I know when jiu-jitsu happened, it was probably the right time, because that's when I did the podcast. That's when I found all these amazing people, and my opportunities to train in LA were just tenfold better. And so, now when I tell these kids, I was like, listen, I wanted to train, but then it found its way for me at a right time. So I think it's easy to kind of, be like, man, it would be cool to have those things and to go train and go compete at those levels. But like, there's also kind of trains of, there's also training that you acquired from MMA that are part of your tool bag that you might not have done if you were just doing submission only. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely a different mentality of MMA guys versus jiu-jitsu guys. And that's one that's like, we actually got into it. Me and one of my brown belts got into it with another black belt here in Tucson at a sub-only event. And the black belt was mad at how my brown belt was cornering me. And he's like, listen, bro, like, show respect. You don't have to be disrespectful and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, dude, we're not being disrespectful. Like, we're fighters. And he goes, yeah, bro, we're all fighters. He goes, no. You do jiu-jitsu. We fight. There's a difference. And there's a difference on how we corner. And if you got upset about how we cornered, then we did our job right, because you ended up taking that.
I think we're going to slight pause on Tony. We're going to give him a second. I hear the Skype looking to rope him back in, so give him just 1 second. I think he's going to be back momentarily, you guys. And you're good.
All right, so my brown belt was cornering me, and the guy was saying, like, you know, you don't have third time. So anyways, this black belt ended up getting mad about how Willie was cornering me, and was saying, like, yeah, we're all fighters, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. And he goes, no. You do jiu-jitsu, we fight. The way that I corner in a fight is way different to how jiu-jitsu guys are used to hearing that. And he goes, if you were focusing on what I was telling my athlete versus focusing on your jiu-jitsu, that's martial arts lesson number 1.
So when that does happen, though, I mean, the thing that I'm always curious about in terms of how it translates for your story, though, is obviously people have different interpretations of how things happen or what jiu-jitsu is supposed to be. How have you found that you're able to kind of mitigate that, or at least kind of connect with those people and be like, hey, listen, what does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, it's
okay. So you think about it like this way. When you have that big guy, everyone's like, oh, jiu-jitsu so that the little guy can be successful against the big guy. That's true unless that big guy's trained. You know what I'm saying? So when you give an MMA guy high-level jiu-jitsu and they bring a pace and a mentality that you don't have as just a pure jiu-jitsu guy, that's where that's supercharged. And that's what I bring. You know what I mean? It's like the pace and this mentality that these guys have is that I'm not there to really hurt them. Mm-hmm. And when there's an open mat version of somebody and the competition version of somebody, all of these guys have come to my open mat and rolled and had one version of me. And then they've had the second version of me where I've popped their knee or popped their ankle. And there was like, whoa, there was like it didn't even, there was no like slow come on like it is in open mat. And I was like, yeah, because at open mat, I'm not trying to fucking hurt you.
Yeah.
When I'm competing against you, I'm legitimately making sure that you don't walk off of that mat. When I'm leg locking you, I'm trying to break you off. You know what I mean? When I choke you, I'm trying to sleep you. Yeah. So, the last three guys that I've gone up against in sub only, I've literally just popped their knees with the full breaking mechanism that I would have,
So here's the question that I always like to ask people, and I think it's really important to know. When did you know that you had fallen in love with grappling? Like, do you have a specific moment? Do you have a specific time that you said, no, this is where I want to be?
There was a kid that obviously the hate for 10th Planet's huge, right? And I just I'm only 3 years into owning this business, and I came out of the gates just super amped about bringing Nogi to the Tucson community. And I have a saying that rising tide raises all ships. And by me opening these schools that never had a Nogi program, and I know that because I have been to the majority of them and trained at the majority of them, and I was the only guy that was wrestling trying to teach a Nogi program. By me opening up 10th Planet Tucson, I forced every gi school in Tucson to train Nogi more than once a week. And at the end of the day, when everybody looks back on the change that I had in my community, the jiu-jitsu is going to be definitely talked about, because by me opening up 10th Planet Tucson, everybody had to deal with the fact that Nogi had to be trained more than just once or twice a week, especially if you're going to stay competitive with my team.
So it's very weird because go ahead.
When I say that, okay, so let me go back to that story. So there was a kid here who's a brown belt, and his dad's one of 2 fifth-degree black belts in Arizona, and they were just attacking my gym constantly on social media. And I said, okay, let's run that match. He was at 170 vaporizer on him and popped his knee. And that's when I go, holy shit, this is dope. I could do this again and again and again.
Could be, you could be more hard pressed, I think, to find a more 10th planet way to submit somebody to.
Yeah, and that was the thing is like, that was like, I mean, I could do nothing more than just go, bam, threw up the 10. That was him understanding all that fake jujitsu that you were talking about. You just got submitted with a bunch of shit that doesn't exist.
Yep. That's dope, dude. I have to ask this because you also have this going for you, which is, when you mentioned 10 years in the game, that's a lot of fight knowledge that you accumulate and all that sort of stuff. What has changed the most from when you first started to now in terms of your perspective in the fight game?
My perspective, what I've noticed about the whole scene in general is no one is specifically good at just one thing anymore. Everybody is outstanding at everything. So the whole scene as a whole is people are actually training mixed martial arts. It's not the jiu-jitsu guy going up against the Muay Thai guy. It's not the wrestler going up against the boxer. It's literally an MMA fighter and an MMA fighter. And it's the way I look at it now is I always saw these names and these guys, and I looked at their career and I go, man, these guys are monsters. Like, what am I doing here? Do I belong? And only as of this last year, 2018, do I realize that I belong. And I belong in any arena with any athlete. And that's where my little brother texted me at this last fight and was like, there's a chair waiting for you at the table. All you got to do is sit down in it. And I was just like, damn, man. I never thought about that. He's like, just take your seat, dude. It's yours. So, I've been thinking about, I'm so humble and I love everybody. And I'm such a big fan of these athletes that I got to remember at the end of the day, they do what I do. You know what I mean? And I now belong here rather than I'm just privileged and happy to be here.
That's an important mentality. It is hard. I think it's very difficult to understand exactly what every fighter goes through. Every fighter has some sort of journey that sometimes seems a little bit more different of you can't understand it for them. It would be hard to understand now, maybe the journey that brought you to, I feel very comfortable and, I've gotten rid of the self-doubt because you see a lot more of just the fight results. More than most things. And so sometimes you don't know the stories that go on behind that. So I think it is important to be reflective in that, because for me, I look at it and half the time I interview fighters and I go, you had that wrong with you? Or this was going on up here? We didn't see that, or we don't see that.
And no one will ever see that. No one will ever know how hurt I was in my last 2 fights in Ryzen. No one will ever know how hurt I was my last fight in the UFC. No one will ever know what was going on with me in these last 2 grappling matches, or the one fight where people actually had some semblance of what the fuck was going on in my life was the MFC world title. My brother had just killed himself. My son was just born 10 days after that, and I had to fly out to Canada and fight a man 10 days after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was all public knowledge.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So people understood, whoa, how did you even do that? And I'm like, you have to compartmentalize so many things, and I had to put so many fucking emotions on the back burner that when it was all said and done and I choked that man, I was just relieved and I could actually feel. Because I was just a robot for about 20 days.
Yeah.
Feel like a daddy. I couldn't feel like that. I was literally just training to try to commit legal murder.
Yeah.
And you want me to look at my newborn son and give him all the love and tenderness in the world when I can't.
Yeah. I mean, I famously told people, when I got word that my mom had passed, I was at the office at NBC on the lowest ring of the totem pole. And I remembered getting up and being like, excuse me, I have to go. My mom has passed. I'm very sorry. Do you need me to cover things? And they're like, go. And I remember just being like, I know, but I feel like I'm going to lose my job if I leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because you realize you're and I told people famously, I'm like, some things you don't even process. I didn't process that for years until almost 3 years later. And then you're like, okay, now I get to actually process it in a way where I'm like, here's what happened, here's what you're going through. I can never imagine having a fight on top of that, being a newborn, having a kid and going through all of those things all at once. So that is a very difficult thing to do. And even if people know the journey and they know the outline of it, they don't know the details that are part of the outline.
Well, like my older brother is always telling me, like, dude, like I feel like the universe or you just shoots yourself in the foot to make it even for everybody, or at least give everybody a fighting chance. He's like, if you didn't shoot yourself in the foot every single fight, what do you think those camps and those opponents would look like? Like, you know what I mean? You're always telling me there's some shit that's going on with you. I always call my brother before every fight, and I'm like, dude, I'll just start bawling, and I'm like, this is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And he's just like, God damn, again? Or, fuck, dude, what are you doing? Like,
yeah.
And he kind of just steers the ship in that way, and it's like, he's like, well, he goes, it's not nothing you can't deal with or you haven't dealt with before, or, is this might be bad, but is it suicide? Is it childbirth? Like, what is it? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it kind of puts it in perspective. He goes, look what you did with one of the most damaging times of your life. And is this that damaging?
That's a good perspective. And it's also nicer, I'm sure, for you is you get to keep that within family. And there's an element of trust with there where I think other people have to build to that trust with their friends. Because with family, you have a little bit more of a, no, I can confide in you. I know you're going to give me the right thing. Friends and training partners, you become family over time.
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
To be able to
I go to my little brother to get the tough love motivation. Like, he'll text me.
Mm-hmm.
He texts me maybe the week of the fight and just goes, I just want to remind you, you ain't shit. I was like, what the fuck did you just tell me? And then he texted me 3 days before the fight, and he goes, did you do everything did you do all that you could do to be successful? And I was like, yes, I did. And then my older brother, he gasses me up in the positive way. And he's always preaching positivity, and my little brother's like, you ain't shit, get up and go run. I'm like, it's 11 p.m. at night. He goes, no excuses. I bet you Montini's running at 11 p.m. at night. And I'm just like, fuck you, dude.
Well, I mean, again, it's good to have the yin and the yang. Because I do feel, honestly, and the way I know that you react with a lot of people, you're a little bit of both yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you have both of those qualities too. So yeah, I see that you can oscillate between them because you have an ability to be like, hey man, guys, this is all love. This is all there. And then I see the little devil side of you that's almost like, no, but fuck him up. Even within our nice circle of friends, that you're that guy that you can reliably get a real response out of. So I think that's something to be said. So what's next, dude? I mean, after Kinetic, what are you guys looking to do? What's coming up next for the gym? What is happening? And is this the new facility, right?
Actually, we had to cancel the expansion, but this is still this whole thing you're seeing right here is all 10th Planet Tucson right now.
Okay.
But so after Kinetic, I have it could very well change, depending on the outcome of the match. Me submitting, Rafion or doing something like that, it could very well dictate who the next bantamweight contender is for LFA. I know it's not the same organization, but that actual fight might come across the table and him go, nah, he just whooped my ass at Kinetic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or nah, I just beat him at Kinetic. But, in realistically, if I look at your record and you're 12-1, you only got 3 submissions on there, and you're looking to have a level of jiu-jitsu of, he was going to grapple Boogeyman. So either two things about him. He don't know who Boogeyman is, or he really didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And, so that coming up, but coming into September, I'm going to let my team take the reins. I got 5 dudes fighting in one weekend. 4 of them are going to be fighting at Tough Enough in Las Vegas at the Orleans Hotel. And then the next day I have to drive to LA and corner one of my pros, James Cannon, out there at Cali Cage Wars. So my whole team is in camp right now. 10th Planet Tucson is legitimately the most legit battle room in Tucson. I try to tell people, hey, if you're rolling in here, we try to really keep it safe. But I said, there's some guys on level 10 right now. So if I see you rolling with somebody, I might pick you a different role.
I think that's a very, very nice thing.
You know what I mean? And I try to keep all the fighters together. Like I was like, I know there's, a big group today, but try to stay between each other.
Yeah.
That way that your guys' intensity isn't misunderstood.
Right. Well, Jim from accounting coming down and being like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. Fuck. And that's nuts, right?
Well, because I have this weird thing where I'll be like a interpreter between both sides, because I'm like a hobbyist, but I'm also training with our competition guys. And so half the time, because of who I know, I'm in a room that I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, what's...
How did I get here?
Yeah, and I'm like looking around and being like, what is my job supposed to be here? I was like, I'm the guy that talks. So then all of a sudden you look over and you'll be like, if I see something going awry, I'm like, hey, can we come over here? Yeah. You want to go down that way.
Yeah.
Simba, everything the light touches, that's where you want to be right there. You don't want to go past where the light does not touch. Okay, goodbye,
yeah,
kid.
That's basically exactly what it is. And but after that, we got Combates America said they're coming back to Tucson October 11th, and then LFA said they're coming back to Phoenix November 9th. So September, October, November, I'm already looking at bookings 1 month apart from each other. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think September will be the only month that I take off and really let my team kind of take the shine and be able to get them some good, some good cage time and mat time and stuff like that.
That seems fair. That seems like a very exciting time. And like you mentioned, what you were telling me, you're like, yeah, I've got 5 guys fighting, 4 in one day, another in LA, and what are you gonna do? It's the life, dude.
Because I've had to literally put their careers on hold for a second so that I could do my thing. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, okay, I'm fucking just cram loading you onto all one weekend. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And, but it's super, dude, I think, and then the synergistic feel that we've been getting is like, my momentum is their momentum and vice versa. Yeah. So once that ball gets rolling, like if you can just keep it going with that level of training and mentality, you could literally be unstoppable, and it's kind of like that juggernaut thing that just won't stop, and that's what we're looking to do.
Well, that's why me personally, when I saw that you had won very quickly, obviously very excited and happy for you, but I know where you're at, and I was just kind of like, all right, what's next? And then all of a sudden I see this kinetic thing happen, and I'm applying for credentials, and you're like, hey, I might be on this thing. And I was like, you should be. That's dope. That's going to be a great opportunity, especially considering the people that they've got within to represent the submission side of our grappling world on that stage, on that platform. I just have to ask, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but is there a team that's going to win in your heart more than others from the teams that
Bro, you already know. Don't look down at the paper like
I'm not. Listen, I'm not.
Can you maybe tell me? I don't know. Maybe
I want to make this
the
very
BJJ
classic.
Fanatics team. What the fuck, dude? What in the fuck? What did Edwin say? If this fucking team loses, we should all retire. I agree. There's no way, man. It's just they might lose a match, maybe, but I mean, I don't know who that asshole's gonna be. Like, think about being that guy on the team. Like, fuck, I lost, dog.
Yeah. I don't. The funniest part to me is I looked at the BJJ Fanatics team, and then I was like, the funniest part about Jake Shields' grappling is we don't talk about it because we don't see it as much, but it's quite good. Yeah. And then Jake's out, and they're like, well, who are we gonna get? Well, I guess Gordon. And you're thinking to yourself,
is he all right to compete?
Yeah, and I'm staring at this thing, like, when you stare at a photo and you go, is what I'm looking at real? Like, did someone make this up? Is this a fake news sort of a thing?
So the only thing that in my mind that shifts around is the total weight could be 950. Like, Gordon's huge.
Oh yeah.
And Jake's big, but he's not Gordon big.
Nah.
So what's the total weight at? You know what I mean? Like, where's that going to come into play? And is it?
Well, they probably look over at Edwin. They're like, lose 10 more pounds so Gordon can be fat.
Yeah, they're like, hey, Edwin, You gotta cut some weight, big dog.
He's gonna be like, "Nah, dude, the kid can't cut his hair. Nah, dog, I gotta keep that." By the way, I'm putting this meme up a little bit later. Shout out to Edwin for being on the hills yesterday. Shout out not to the team who was putting the little by credit of what his little lower third reads because they spelled, instead of jujitsu, is jui jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu.
And I couldn't help but think, because Edwin was so stoked about being like, yo, the kid's on the hills. It's going to be my big premiere. Yo, you guys got to tune in. And then all of a sudden you see on there, I'm like, jiu-jitsu. No.
Does pajama karate.
This poor kid.
Hey, how great would it be if they just put does karate?
Honestly, I would have laughed my ass off. But it was so bad, even when I showed my wife, she was like, oh, that poor kid. And I was like, he's fine. It's just...
The only thing worse would have been, like, multiple-time Naga winner.
It's very true. Well, Tony, let's do this. If people are looking to find you, where can they find you? We're talking seminars, privates, all the good stuff. Where should they be able to find you, sir?
Yeah, if you guys want to book any seminars or privates, just, slide in those DMs. It's at Birchak MMA. I'm super interactive with all my fans on Instagram, Twitter. Message me on Facebook. Just look up Anthony Birchak, Birchak. And yeah, we'll make something happen, man. I'll actually, in September 13th through the 15th, I'm doing the Texas No-Gi Summit. I'll be teaching a block portion of that. If you guys want more information, I believe tickets are $299. It's 3 days, 25 hours, and 3, 6, 9, 15 different instructors. So you'll be able to learn a lot of no-gi jiu-jitsu from a lot of amazing people. Brandon McCaffrey, Jesus Chuy Urbina, Mosquito, Cristobal Chavez from 10 Planet El Paso, Curtis Hembroff, 10 Planet Austin. There's just so many more people, and the list goes on and on.
That sounds like a good time. Tony, I'm so glad that you were able to take time out to talk with us. Again, it's one of those great things where I wanted to talk about your LFA win, but then I saw you had this momentum going to Kinetic, and it's so good that you're going to be on the debut of that card so that you can do what you do best, and I look forward to covering it and seeing you there, sir.
Thank you, Raph. I appreciate your time, man. I really, really look forward to seeing you in California.
Absolutely. All right, guys, keep it locked here. We will be right back after these messages. Hey, what's up, everybody? It is your good friend Raph. We have had a great show so far. You just were watching the interview I did with Tony. However, I will tell you this right here, right now. We are still not done. We have one more interview for today. And if you haven't checked it out, go check out the earlier parts of today's episode. We also had Keith and we had Rich. If you're just tuning in right now, and if you are just tuning in right now, where have you been? You're with us now, so I'm not as mad as you. But I will say this. Go at us at Grappling Hour on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Subscribe there so that you guys can be the first to find out when we have monster shows like this. There's so much grappling going on, and we want to make sure we encompass all of the major events that are happening, big and small, because we like to give credit to the grapplers out there. I'm very excited about this next interview. I conducted this yesterday with Werther and Marciales, who had a very, very tough tournament over at the Brothers Invitational, as put together by our good friend Jams. So I wanted to give some shine to him. I want to introduce you guys to him. If you don't know him, now you're going to know. And if you do know him, get to know him even better. I think we find out a lot of great information about him, his history, and how he transitioned from wrestling over to the world of grappling. I hope you guys enjoy this interview, and we'll be right back after that interview. See you in a second. Hey, what's up, everybody? So one of the beautiful parts about checking your Facebook regularly is that you will see tournaments that you don't always get to see. For example, when our good friend Jams puts together a great tournament, an 8-man tournament, and gets some pretty good names on this card, I don't always get the opportunity to see it live. But when I check my Facebook a little bit later, I go, oh my God, this looks like an actually really good tournament. You get the opportunity to see who was winning, who was showing out, and all that sort of good stuff. And though I don't really care for Jams all that much as a human being, I do appreciate the fact that he brings together some top-tier talent. And actually, we were lucky enough to get an interview right now with the man who won it all and who will be competing this weekend in a special match at Combat Jiu-Jitsu Worlds, which is going to be originating out of Long Beach, California, and yours truly will be covering it as well. So why don't we go ahead and bring on the winner of the Brothers Invitational and to be seen on this weekend's Combat Jiu-Jitsu big card. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Werther Marciales. Werther, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Raf. How you doing, man?
Very well. Thank you very much. I noticed that you put on a shirt for the occasion. When we did the preview interview, when I was talking with you beforehand, you were sans shirt. Can I ask what the shirt is?
I was just fresh from training. This is Nogi Nation rash guard.
Mm-hmm.
The company's run by actually my manager, Josh. He puts some great stuff out there, especially if you're he's all right. He's so-and-so. Depends on the day. But, he puts out some good gear. So if you guys want to check out his website, it's nogination.com. He's got some good stuff, so you should check it out.
So what would be the conditions, and I'm not trying to ruin your life here, but what would be the condition in which you would fire Josh? Because...
The condition in which I would fire Josh?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we don't have in jiu-jitsu right now is competition. So it's not uncommon to get, like, an Ari Gold that would come into jiu-jitsu as a manager that would out-Ari Josh LeDuc. So I've always wondered what it would take. Like, would it be more insults, less insults? Like, what would it take to fire Josh LeDuc?
The insults don't bother me, honestly. We have a very we spar a lot, in our relationship. We insult each other a lot, but it's all in good fun, I kid a lot, but he's a really good dude. He's a great manager. So, what would it take to fire him? I mean, I don't know. He's doing a good job for me so far. Like he plugged me into this combat jiu-jitsu match this weekend. So, I see no reason to.
I'll help you come up with the reason. Don't worry.
I recommend it, honestly.
Well, that's not the answer I'm looking for, so we'll edit that out of the main broadcast.
I'm sorry I couldn't rag on him a little bit more, but no, he's a good, in all honesty, he's a good dude, and he's been doing a lot of good for me. So.
Here's what I like is, as a professional wrestling fan, you do need that Bobby the Brain Heenan figure on the outside that kind of cuts the deals and gets the audience excited. And even when he's not involved in matches, he seems to be very, very vocal in getting people excited about whatever matches are coming up. So I have an appreciation for what Josh does.
Yeah, man. I mean, he, before he kind of went on to other things, like he did the Zapatero promotion for a while, got some big talent to come on those cards. And that was pretty cool. And, he talks a lot of trash. Like he's really good at playing the heel, and he gets a lot of excitement for these events, man. And we need people like that. We need people like him. We need people like Gordon to drum up interest for these matches. There's always going to be those hardcore guys that are really interested in the technical exchanges that go on in matches, but to get that human element of excitement behind it, that's what draws in the larger cards. And, obviously that's going to lead to, professional grapplers like me, hopefully, getting paid more someday. So, those guys do a lot for the sport.
Well, let's talk about doing a lot for this weekend. Jams put together this 8-man invitational, the Brothers Invitational. I'd love to ask, how did you get put on that card? And, it sounds like something you're fairly familiar with.
So Josh kind of tagged me, in the post. I think Jams was still looking for guys. This was a month ago. 8-man in Oklahoma for $800. And I was like, okay. Whatever. I got nothing going on that weekend. I figured, it would be good tournament to do to at least gain some experience. That's something I look forward to, and obviously potentially winning the money was nice, which I managed to do, so that was cool. I also knew there were going to be some good guys there like Elijah and Troy, so I was looking forward to having matches against those guys.
Now, when you do see like this series coming together, though, Jams obviously, like I said, it's a fun tournament. It does pay cash, which is great because there are some that don't.
Yeah.
But like, had you watched the previous Brothers Invitationals? Like, what about it appealed to you?
I actually did not watch the previous Brothers Invitational. The thing that appealed to me was just like, it's a rule I'm familiar with, like EBI rules. All submissions legal. I'm all for that. I'm big into leg locks. Although I didn't get a leg lock finish this weekend. They were all upper body stuff, but I liked that rule set. Like the sub only rule set really encourages people to go after it, and there's not as much stalling. So it's just more fun for me. So Josh tagging in it, he said like Jams had a good reputation for running these kinds of events. So I figured it would be a good thing for me to do.
Let's talk about this. Tell me about the matches that you had. Let's walk through the day.
Sure. So my toughest match was probably my first match against Elijah. We've grappled before. We grappled at the third Jacksonville Invitational. It's a tournament run by Brian Brown. We were both purple belts at the time. And Elijah kind of smashed his way to the finals. He stopped everybody very quickly, and man, I had I had a lot of wars on my side of the bracket, but I made it to the finals, and then I couldn't get the job done in regulation, and I managed to get a submission in overtime. So going into the match, I knew it was going to be tough. Like, he's got a very tricky guard. Like, he's very dangerous with arm bars and triangles, and he's very leg lock savvy. So I was just trying to be patient and take my time with the pass, and then for the first 4 or 5 minutes, we had some leg exchanges. I was mostly on top. I was trying to pass, and then I finally got to pass. As I was trying to settle into north-south, which is a position that I like, he started framing very hard. He started framing very hard and trying to get his knees back in, and he had his arm completely extended on my hip, so I was able to slide my knee in his armpit and throw my leg over for a quick arm bar, and that's how I managed to catch him. It was off him trying to retain his guard. But it's definitely a very tough match. He actually almost had my back once at the very beginning. Yeah. Do you want me to keep going through the rest?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, tell me about your next match, but if you're going to steamroll through it, I got no issue with that.
Sure. So my next match was against Troy. So Troy and Elijah actually had a match after my match with Troy, and Troy managed to beat him. It was also a good match. So that was cool. That was cool to watch. I managed to submit. I managed to submit Troy in a guillotine relatively quickly. I think that was because we had compatible styles, if that makes sense. He was a very wrestler heavy top guy, very very aggressive, and that kind of plays into my game as well because I'm the same. And so I managed to snap him down after a few wrestling exchanges, and from the front headlock, I attempted an arming guillotine first, and he started passing the correct side. So I went back to the front headlock, and I switched my grip to an arm out guillotine, pretzel grip, and then I managed to pull guard and finish. And that's how I caught him.
Nice.
So yeah, tough guy, but I was able to finish off the snap down. The front headlock is a pretty strong position for me. So if I get there, I'm usually pretty good at either getting a choke from there or taking the back off of it. My last match, I actually didn't know of him before. His name was Hunter, but certainly didn't underestimate him. I watched his side of the bracket. He got two very very quick submissions. So I didn't get to see much of his game actually before the finals match.
This is you and Hunter Colvin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he got really really quick submissions. So I knew obviously he did legs. So I wanted to stay wary of that. But the match started, and he got a quick takedown on me, did an arm drag, and I went for like a sloppy guillotine because it caught me by surprise, and I couldn't catch him in that. He started to sit back for a leg, and I kind of inverted a little bit to stop it and sat up to like pommel and try to elevate him, and he wrapped my head. And normally I try not to let that happen, but I felt like I was in a good position to elevate. So I did. So I elevated him, and then I passed and put some pressure with the Von Flue choke because I was able to trap his arm. And I knew I wasn't gonna submit him. But my goal was to like put some pressure and wear him down, and then I knee slid over to mount and got a head and arm choke from the mount, and that's how I won. So yeah, it was pretty cool, man. Very very tough match against Elijah in the beginning for sure, man. He's the killer.
What does a celebration look like? Because here's the thing, we're not quite the sport yet where you can make it rain with your money. Like, you're the person in jiu-jitsu who, if you make it rain, you have to like collect and be like, no, I just hold on, don't come near this money. What does a celebration entail for you when you do?
A celebration is putting it in my bank account and paying off my bills, man. That's what I did with the money. I mean, it's a funny story. I was looking to see who else was flying out to the tournament, and Elijah was driving. He was driving like 12 hours to come and grapple, because he's a gangster. So, I hit him up and was like, hey man, do you want to split a room? So we said yes. And then the brackets come out, and we're the first match. And so he messages me, he's like, hey man, do you still want to stay together? I've got no problem with it. And, is what he said. And so I was like, screw it. I mean, we're going to grapple regardless. So we ended up staying together. It was pretty funny.
You guys essentially had the stepbrothers kind of arrangement where I'm sure you're just sleeping in separate beds and being like, what are you thinking about right now, dude? Like, what's your strategy for tomorrow, man?
There weren't. I wasn't gonna like play any mind games, and he didn't. He didn't either. He kind of joked around a little bit when we were having breakfast. He's like, bro, if you eat that waffle, I'm gonna body triangle you and tap you. I'm just gonna... And so I ended up not eating my waffle, and I just had a lighter breakfast. And maybe
okay, you were saying that there were no mind games, but if you put down a waffle out of being shamed into not eating a waffle, I'd like to inform you.
No. Like, he said that, and I was like, I'm probably, because I'd already eaten a lot at this point, and I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't push it. Like, I'd already eaten like a lot of eggs and ham and like a bagel or something, So I was getting pretty full, and the tournament was only like 2.5 hours away. So I figured, okay, waffle and syrup, probably not the best idea right now. So I ended up not eating it. I don't know though. Maybe you're right. Maybe he was trying to play.
No, I'm 100%. No, I don't think he might have intentionally came in and was like, oh, now that we share a room, now I'm gonna get it. I think it was a byproduct of, in the moment, he's like, oh, hey, fatty.
I don't think that's what he was trying to do at all. No, it was just a joke that he was making in passing.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm not great at jiu-jitsu, but I know the psychology of it. And I know, because you know what the nice part is we have a lot of jokes, and the worst part is when I go to train with people, I tell them, I'm like, listen, hey, it's fun, and, do whatever you want. But the minute somebody tries to insult me, I'm like, you're not going to win this. In fact, all of a sudden my jiu-jitsu is going to be better because you're trying to insult me, and I'm far better than you at this.
Well, for me, it's more so that Josh has just worn me down with every insult in the book. I'm so prepared for anything that someone can throw at me. And I think he does that. I think he does that on purpose. With his guy, with his guys and the people he trains with, because he has a gym in Palmetto, which is close. So I occasionally train with him. He just is just verbally abusive, so that if somebody else tries to do it, you've already heard it all. It's not going to affect your mental game, and I don't think it's ever affected mine. When opponents have tried to trash talk me a few times, it's happened. It's like whatever.
Well, I was laughing because when Josh and I did train, there was a moment And his jiu-jitsu is really good, so it's not a knock on that. But there was definitely a moment when we were training, and he looked at me and he goes, "You do what I do." And I was like, "Yeah, you're not going to win the psychology part. Like, I've got that covered." He literally, like, he laid down like a Diaz brother to let me just openly pass him. And then he was a little surprised when I just did the exact same right next to him and was like, "What's up?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Why would you do that?" I would just pass. And I was like, "I accept it. That's fine. Do what you want." And he's like, "Fascinating." And I just looked at him and I go, "Yeah, just stick to the regular jiu-jitsu. This isn't going to work for you. I promise you, you know." But he's a very fun role. He's very, very, I was very happy when he came out here last month with Jordan. It was a great opportunity to get to meet and train with both of them. But that's not about them. It's about you. Let's get to know a little bit more about you, because I want to know, you know, where does your jiu-jitsu origin story begin? I obviously want to get to combat jiu-jitsu and talking a little bit about, you know, how you got on that card. But I think it's important to really get to know a little bit more about the athlete. So tell us where your origin story begins.
So I guess the first time I got into grappling was when I was 14. I wrestled. You know, my stepbrother was on the wrestling team his freshman year, and I was a year younger than him. And he, like, you know, I was a lot smaller than him, and he wanted to talk. So he was like, "You should wrestle." So I did that. Lost every match my freshman year because I was like the only 103 pounder that they had. So they kind of just put me into varsity, and I lost all my matches. But I was like, I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna let it end here, you know. So sophomore year, did it a little better. Won almost half. You know, and then by the time my junior and senior year came along, I was decent. You know, I didn't place at state or anything, but I was okay. Then after wrestling, went to college. You know, didn't do anything for my first year, and then this girl I was sort of seeing at the time.
Were there 1 second?
She never came back, but you know, I was like, this stuff is.
I heard just the tail end of what you were saying here, so I think we got you broke up just a little bit, so your reception just cut out. The unfortunate part about your reception cutting out is the fact that I heard how it ends. So I heard her being like, "Well, she's not around, and she just." But do you mind repeating that part of the story, if you would?
When I went into college, like this girl I was seeing at the time, you know, convinced me to go to this MMA gym and try it out, and so I tried a free class, and she, you know, she didn't like it as much. Jiu-jitsu stuff. I choke people. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So I went heavy into the gym there, and I was at Train Fight Win for a little over a year. Before I moved down to Bradenton after I graduated from college, and I trained with Sonny because I trained with him for a month over the summer while I was still in school, and you know the level of jiu-jitsu was just really much higher than what I had when I was in Tallahassee at the time, you know. So I was like, I gotta train with this guy. You know, this 46-year-old dude is just effortlessly just destroying me. You know, so I had to train with him, and so I've been with Sonny ever since. It's been almost 4 years, actually, yeah, since I started with Sonny. So he's definitely the person that was just that you know, told me to stop freaking out and spazzing, you know, because wrestling is a lot like that. It's like a very intense, you know, like go, and he's like, dude, just relax. You gotta relax. You're gonna burn yourself out, and you're not, you know, going through the transitions the way that you need to. Yeah. So, you know, he did a lot for my game in terms of calming me down and, you know, getting my bottom game, my guard game really good. So, you know, I owe a lot of my development to Sonny Parlin. You know, he's a beast. If you ever get a chance to train at Gracie Bradenton, if you're ever in town, you know, he's a good place to be.
Well, I have very little reason to ever go to Florida, but I will ask this question because I'm curious about it. Mm-hmm. You're talking about Sonny, the person who has half of the name of my podcast for his. Correct?
What's that?
Does Sonny not have a show entitled The Old Man Grappling Hour?
Yes, he does. That's him.
Yep, no, I know. Sonny and I are friends. We're friendly. I just like the idea of letting him know that he and Kevin could have picked any name in the entire universe to call their podcast or their show. And they came back after mine and they go, well, we're doing Old Man Grappling Hour. And I was like, that's like my name. So every chance I get the opportunity, I like to rib them a little bit. But my question to you is this. Have you been on their show?
I have not, actually.
Oh, okay.
So.
That's so strange. Weird. You would think their booking would come and give you a little bit of shine, but that's fine. It's not who put you on first; it's who put you on best. And I've already done both, so I want to make sure that's very clear, so that people can see that sort of a thing. But anyway, tell me a little bit about. So when did you know that you fell in love with jiu-jitsu? Because you said that you liked it right away, but was there a moment that you could remember where it just happened like that?
Probably the first, maybe after the first tournament that I ever did. I'd say after that, that was really cool because, I felt like when I wrestled, I'd never really won anything of significance, and so, the first tournament I did, I had about 6 months experience. I grappled in the intermediate division. It was a 5-man bracket, and I did like a full camp for it. Now I don't really do camps for jiu-jitsu. Now I'm sort of just training all the time. I train with the same intensity every week. But I went hardcore into that tournament and I won it, and I was like, yes, this is awesome. It was great to be able to win, to win something. So I did that, and then I moved up to the advanced division after that, and of the next dozen matches that I did, I lost 11 of them. So that sucked. But I was like, it's better that I'm getting experience and getting smashed this way because it's gonna get me better faster, and I think it did. So I'd say, after my first tournament, it's like, man, I really want to just keep doing this. It was awesome.
Is the transition to doing more jiu-jitsu difficult now in the sense that do you ever still have wrestling impulses? Do you still you mentioned that having to modify part of your game was an adjustment at the very beginning. Is that something even at your proficiency now that you still have to kind of like monitor, or is there a different challenge that's more difficult to you as you go along?
I don't think so. And I think a big reason why is our when I roll in the gym, my goal is not positional like it is in wrestling. Wrestling is extremely positional, right? Even the way that you win, a pinfall is like positional control. My goal is a submission. So when I wrestle, I became submission conscious very quickly. And I was like, okay, stop this head to the outside shot stuff. I can't do that anymore. These low singles can get me in trouble, that I used to do. It was one of my favorite moves, but people were catching me in reverse triangles and stuff and scrambling to my back off, threatening submission. So it's another thing I had to throw away, so the takedowns that I do now are, submission aware takedowns. I do things that are not going to put me in danger, so I don't think I still have any bad impulses. I think my wrestling is sort of just fully merged with my jiu-jitsu game at this point.
It's good to know. It's very funny because there's somebody who I was just working with yesterday, and he's like, he's giving me a mile a dozen for different things he wants to work on. And he tells me, he's like, oh man, I want to work on this and I want to work on that. And I was like, okay, we can do those things. And he goes, and my shot's bad and I need to run this pipe. And I was kind of like, hold on. Let's address one of these by problems. Let's start with trying to get them down. Because he fights MMA. Yeah. I'm like, let's try and work to get them down first, and then we can work on part of the jiu-jitsu side a little bit later. But I'm like, I looked at the way he was popping up his head, and I was like, let's talk about this. This is where bad things happen. I was like, this is what, as a jiu-jitsu guy, I would do to you. And he had a very nice appreciation for that. So I just always find, with so many different wrestlers that we have that come in, the impulse to like this is there, but the know how to somehow modify what they do is something that I think they find different levels, because it's like you taper part of it down, and then all of a sudden when you're in these big high profile matches with individuals, that wrestling becomes an asset.
Yeah.
So it is something I am curious about. Let's talk about this combat jiu-jitsu thing. I'm assuming this is also Josh's work, but at the same point, it is a special match, which means that you don't have to go and do the entire bit of being in a tournament for the night. So that's good, potentially, unless something happens and you get put in there.
We'll see. I'm prepping for, I may have to grapple in the main bracket. I'm prepping for I may have to do more than one match, but. Yeah, if no one pulls out, then it should just be me and Alan. So.
And this is Alan Sanchez, correct?
Yes, this is Alan Sanchez.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two very, very good individuals. Let me ask this, because before we even, I guess, get into the history between you and Alan in terms of matches, have you done combat style before? I assume with the guys that you're training with that you would be conscious and savvy of it, but has that been something that you've had a match in?
No, I've never done a combat jiu-jitsu match before. I did one amateur MMA fight when I was still a white belt. I was like 10 months in. And I ended up losing, but it didn't matter. The point is, I'm used to getting hit to the head. I'm used to taking hard shots to the body. So, for this camp, I had the guys that are MMA focused just palm strike the crap out of me, both to the body and head, to get me used to the strikes and still be able to implement my jiu-jitsu. Shout out to my buddy Kyle Kozil, by the way. Definitely the person who hit me the hardest, but definitely got me ready for this. So I appreciate him.
So has this, it's interesting because there's discussion of bringing back EBI and combat jiu-jitsu and all that sort of thing. If you had your shot, would you have rather just wanted to be in a pure EBI, or would you have wanted to do some form of combat? Because if you fought MMA, sometimes you do have that impulse of being like, yeah, I'm fine with people slapping me. That's fine.
I don't know. I think it's, whatever attracts the most viewership and whatever it's going to grow the sport more, and the argument seems to be that, the viewership was higher when it was just regular EBI without the palm strikes. But, maybe it's just got to take some time to catch on. Personally, I like it. I think it's exciting, that, now you're in positions where before you could chill, and now if someone's palming your face, you have to move. So it adds a bit of an element of realism. Definitely nowhere near as much as MMA, but it is cool to see how people have to modify their game to deal with the strikes. Like you can't sit in a gift wrap, and have someone just palm your face, and you can't sit in a lockdown half guard, with an arm trap or something, and have someone hit you. Whereas before, if it was a jiu-jitsu match, you could just kind of chill. So I would be open to doing both, both the regular EBI if they ever brought it back, or the combat jiu-jitsu stuff.
Very nice public relations answer. Anyway, so one of the things that I do get curious about in terms of this is, you mentioned that there's a little bit of match history with Alan before. So tell us just a little bit about that, so that way I think people can know that, because they may not have seen your other matches, but they know of both of you guys as individuals who grapple.
So the only time we've grappled was at Midwest Finishers back in June. So we met in the quarterfinals. I had a really, really, really tough match my first round, and then second round I had him. Also extremely tough. So he basically choked me. He took my back and choked me about 3 minutes in. On my end, I don't think it was a impressive match, but I've been making a lot of changes to my game and the way I've been training to not get caught the same way. So, it should be a different match, especially when you add in the palm strikes. I've been training a lot with, both taking and dishing out strikes. So I'm confident that this will be an entirely different match. But yeah, Alan's very good. Even before finishers, I knew of him. Like he won he won the Olympus 170 tournament in Jacksonville, which was a 32-man. It was a 32-man welterweight tournament. There were about a dozen, really good black belts there, and he beat everybody. So I knew who he was. I know he's good, but I have tools in my arsenal that I think I can take this in regulation. So we'll see what happens.
That's very cool. I mean, like you said, to change the style and the format of the competition does present new challenges. So that will be interesting to see. And, it's very funny because I know with Eddie's guys, he's usually just like, I don't know if combat's on their radar, but I know a lot of them are just like, hey, you're doing this now, so get out there. And it's like, am I combating? Okay, sure. They're just doing what Eddie says. So I know Alan, he's a good kid, very good competitor.
He's a very nice guy, yeah.
Super nice, man. And I remember seeing your matches at the Midwest Finishers and just being like, yeah, okay. So when you mentioned that you had a match with him, as we're coming on here, I was like, yeah, I could see that again. All right, that's cool. Let's do this, man. I'm very excited for you to have the opportunity to do combat jiu-jitsu. That's a huge, huge opportunity. You get on out to California. I imagine that means that you've got some folks who are taking care of you sponsor-wise. So can we take care of any shout-outs for sponsors real quick, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Big shout-out to my sponsor, Nogi Nation, wearing their rash guard right now. Just like I mentioned in the beginning, you can get some really cool stuff on their website, nogination.com. So be sure to check it out. And just big shout out to my manager Josh, for getting this match booked for me. I'm very excited, and he does great work. Like anything that he's involved in is going to be good. So
awesome. So when you do your thing, are you traveling out for seminars? Where can people get in touch with you for either that or for privates? Because I'm sure that's got to be one of the fun things about when you are getting out to different spots and different places and traveling a whole bunch.
You can DM me on my Instagram, Robot Dolphin. That's it. There's nothing else. Just Robot Dolphin.
Hold on. No. Why Robot Dolphin?
It's a long story.
Give me the abbreviated 30-second version.
Okay, so when I was in Tallahassee, my nickname, which was like a cute little nickname that the fight team gave me was Dolphin Baby, because I would always dive on low singles and someone mentioned that it looked like a dolphin. Nicknames get created in dumb ways, but then Sonny thought I was awkward, so he called me a robot when I started training with him, and so those two nicknames just kind of became merged. So now I'm the Robot Dolphin. That's the abridged version.
Do you have a logo for that? Have you optioned that out to people to make a logo for you yet?
Yeah, Josh made me a rash guard. It's a robotic dolphin with an antenna. So that's in the middle of my rash guard. I'll be wearing that one.
I have to tell you, man.
I love
it. You could get worse nicknames. Robot Dolphin is definitely. No one else is gonna have that one, so you're good.
It's definitely unique. I don't think anyone is ever gonna try to trademark it. So.
Well, nobody's going to show up with a jersey that's like, oh, you also have Robot Dolphin on the back of your name? Oh, that's ridiculous. I thought I was the only one. That's pretty spectacular. So, yes, you're traveling all the way. They can get in contact with you on Instagram at Robot Dolphin, DM you, all that sort of stuff. I got to say this, man. Werther, you had a great showing, and one of the fun parts about seeing all these different opportunities for grapplers is seeing their ability to go from 1 week being on an 8-man tournament to then saying the next week, all right, I'm going to go slap face. But you're traveling all around and you're putting in the hustle, and I very much appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Raph. I appreciate it, man.
No problem. We look forward to seeing you there. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I will be at Combat Jiu-Jitsu myself, covering. Don't try and hit me. I'm just not going to tolerate it. But I will see you guys there, and you get to see this man in a special match, as well as a 16-man tournament where people are going to be slapping each other, and there's going to be lots of terrible Rick James memes that come out for the next 5 days afterwards. Just know that I've done it better.
It's going to be great, man. I'm looking forward to the memes. But it's fun, man. It's jiu-jitsu, but you get to see people slap the crap out of each other. Like, what's not to like?
I mean, a lot. Here's the thing. So I have an appreciation for both of them in different ways. And I find it very fascinating that this discussion of EBI in combat is doing exactly what it needs to do, which is making people miss it. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. So it's basically bringing back new Coke at some point. I have no issue with that.
I think eventually he's gonna do both. I think he eventually is gonna bring back the old EBI and have combat jiu-jitsu, and that's gonna probably increase the viewership a lot as well. So.
My one issue has always been it's kind of twofold, but it's I feel that sometimes combat jiu-jitsu has a higher degree of dropout rate, and I feel it's a harder thing to get people to replace. Because you say, hey, who's going to be an EBI? Everybody raises their hand and goes, yeah, I'm in. You say, hey, who's going to replace in combat jiu-jitsu? People go, I think Frank will do it. I mean, call me when there's another EBI.
Don't want to get hit. Do you think that's why?
So, my personal belief is grapplers have a history, statistically, of not necessarily being the world's best strikers. And I feel that some grapplers see themselves as getting exposed a little bit for their striking or lack thereof. And I think that sometimes people don't like showing that. I don't think people mind saying, like, hey, I'm not good on my left side in jiu-jitsu if somebody's passing my guard. I think people go like, oh, whatever, fuck it, I'll figure out a way. I think it's a little more exposed if they go, oh, if they know that I'm bad at that and they can hit me, it's a little bit more of a dire situation. And there are some, like, the people who want to get into combat jiu-jitsu, I've interviewed a number of them, and they all have a psychotic element to them of like, yeah, dude, hit me. And it's like, I'm not that guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. And there's definitely what I've seen result a little bit more of it, of stubborn jiu-jitsu guys who say, no, I want to show what I do is legitimate. And I have respect for both of those camps. It's just I've seen a number of combat matches that I think didn't display the combat side or the jiu-jitsu side all that well at different times. And it's not to say that the match was terrible. It's just half the time you've seen matches where it's combat based, but that no combat happens. You know, Bia Mosquita, when I talked with her, was like, I go to her and I go, could you, won with throwing some strikes? And she's like, I know I did this match and I was so excited to do it, and then I just kind of forgot. And I was like, your purpose is to win. You just have another tool to win, and some people choose not to. So that's kind of my overall thought process.
Like Thor chose not to use it. John Thor Blank, he chose not to use it, and he submitted everybody anyway. So
yeah, which is fine. But then it's just put him in EBI. You know what I mean? Like you have your options and your choices. It's just for me.
I mean, to me, it shows that like, okay, so Thor's choosing not to throw the strikes, and even though everyone else has that tool and some of the people decided to use it on him, it didn't matter. His jiu-jitsu was just too good, and so that was pretty cool to see as well,
Yeah.
And I'm not as good as him. I don't think I'll be able to do that. I'm definitely going to throw palm strikes, but I think either way, it adds an interesting.
I'll tell you this much though. The most hilarious thing to me is on the one side that I do have an appreciation for it makes for really funny photos for me to meme. So I'm on the side taking photographs, and there's definitely a lot of times where I'm just like this and I go, oh, that's going to be a good meme. Yep. Because the faces people make are way more all over the place than they would in regular just EBI kind of format stuff. But anyway. Well, either way, I look forward to you having the opportunity to compete on a big stage like that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be fun running into you. So be sure to say hello when you are in town, sir, and I will do the same.
I sure will. All right. Thank you very much, Ralph. Appreciate it, man.
Hey, guys, do me a solid right now. Stick around. We will be right back after these commercial interruptions. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in today. We appreciate your time. More importantly, we appreciate your attention. It's been a fun day talking with a number of people. We had 4 excellent guests on a very stacked episode. First, we talked with Keith Krikorian straight off of the So Gi Invitational out in the East Coast, who then had an excellent showing there, then had a turnout for a seminar that he conducted, made his way back home, made time for us for an interview, and guess what? We got to hear about his thoughts about the Shugio Invitational that he's also a part of, that you guys can catch on the interwebs right now if you go to their YouTube page, as well as his own excitement and reaction to getting put on the ADCC official card. What is it, 67K? I don't know how big these kids are, but it's something K. I don't really pay attention to that. Then we also talked to Rich Byrne, the CEO of One Kasai Grappling. This man loves grappling. We've had the honor of talking with him on Verbal Tap, and I'm so glad he's somebody who can actually make time to speak with us and tell us what we can expect from this weekend's Kasai number 6, and more importantly, preview those matches and the 8-man tournament, even though he was too coward to give us an actual prediction on as to who would win. Just saying. And, of course, we rounded out the day talking with Tony Birchak, who talked about his big win over at LFA, his upcoming match at Kinetic Grappling, which I will be covering this weekend, and then we closed it on out with Werther Marciales, who talked about his big win over at the Brothers Invitational. A lot of grappling stuff going on. Fortunately, we try to keep our finger on the pulse of all things jiu-jitsu. If you guys are not doing as such, do us a solid. Go give us a follow at Grappling Hour on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. That is at Grappling Hour. Then you get to see great things like this. If you haven't checked out our latest episode of Verbal Tap, we brought on combat jiu-jitsu competitor Cody Steele to help us preview UFC 241. Now, this is a stacked weekend. You will see me covering Kinetic Grappling. That is this Friday over in Anaheim. I believe it's the Anaheim Convention Center. And there is a lot of talk about BJJ Fanatics' team for Kinetic Grappling being the early favorites going into it. But gotta wonder, is somebody going to upset them? Probably not. But you gotta tune in to find out. And we're very excited to have live coverage there. Then, of course, UFC 241. And then the very next day, we will be out in Long Beach at Thunder Road Studios covering combat jiu-jitsu. So it's an intense weekend, but I will be all around, and I want you guys to make sure to mark off this Thursday. We're going to re-air our interview in our ongoing series of interviewing all but one ADCC American Trials champions. And this week we will be talking to my arch nemesis in all things ADCC Trials, Jonathan Satava, who, by the way, just had a beautiful baby recently, so congrats on that. He has a new gym, and he just got 10,000 followers on Instagram. He unfortunately beat us to that mark, which I'm a little sad about, but I'll get over it. So my congratulations, begrudgingly, to one, Jonathan Satava, even though, whatever, I'm waiting for USADA to get back to me on the results. I think we'll find out that he probably cheated. Anyway, that's not important. Go at us, at Grappling Hour, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on all of those different accounts. My thanks to Keith, Rich, Tony, and Werther for their great conversation today. I hope you guys liked the show. It's been a great day for grappling. We will see you on the mats.